Chapter 802. The Lost Forest was a forest in an unknown plain. The Lost Forest was not very vast, but it was already controlled by the Western Heaven Realm. Because the terrain here was complex and ferocious beasts ran amok, it was treated as the last trial field of the Western Divine Realm. In this Lost Forest, the participants would kill each other. Rather than calling it a forest in another plane, it would be more appropriate to call it the graveyard of the gods. For thousands of years, how many outstanding and talented gods had fallen here, becoming the spoils of war for others. Swoosh, 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 a few streams of light shot out in the sky. Each stream of light was a god. There were 20 participants, and a total of 20 God Emperor-level experts were used to supervise this trial. In the night wind, Li Fei's short red cloak swayed with the wind. The moonlight outlined her enchanting figure and charming face. She stood in the wind, hiding her aura to the point where it was almost impossible to detect her, like a leaf in the wind. Her beautiful eyes shone as she quietly watched everything in the forest. The 20 participants had already spread out. Next, it was time to see how they would perform. The killing would only stop when there were only 10 people left. Rustle, a clear sound came from the leaves in the grass. In the darkness, a beautiful figure crouched in the bushes. It was she. She did not fly because once she used her divine power to fly, she would definitely expose her position and attract other hunters. This was the last trial, and it was destined that she would not have any friends. She held the star's sword in her hand, and the blade was not unsheathed. On her waist, there was a military knife that she had brought from the banished land. This knife was not a divine weapon, but it was sharp. However, at the crucial moment, this kind of inconspicuous weapon would always play a magical role. Sheen was waiting for the appearance of her prey. Perhaps, it could be said that she was waiting for the trial to end. As long as she was not killed and not on the list of 10 dead, she would pass. No matter what, these 20 people were people that she had been with for many days. Although Sheen would not be merciful, at least she would not lose her nature and fall into bloodthirst and killing. After waiting for nearly half an hour, the prey finally arrived. In the darkness, a figure slowly approached. It was a man in his 20s wearing leather armor. His face was filled with caution as he looked around. In his hand was a cross-shaped sword that glowed with a faint divine luster. It was Luo Da, a disciple chosen by a prestigious family at the edge of the star region. He was at the 22nd Grotto Heaven Realm and could be considered an expert. Shwa shwa. On Rhodes' neck there was a nameplate shining with a silver luster. This was his nameplate, and it would also be someone else's spoils of war. Sheen continued to remain silent and calm, as if his entire being had become one with the earth. Rhodes was injured. His left arm was dripping with golden blood. There were pursuers. Moreover, the pursuer wasn't far away. A powerful pressure covered the sky and covered the earth. A person fell from the sky like a bolt of lightning. Bang! The blade of the sword split a huge rock in half, emitting a radiance that was as bright as the sun. Although Rhodes dodged this attack, the aftershock had already burned Rhodes, burning through his leather armor and burning red marks on his chest. The blade of the sword was emitting a piercingly cold radiance, illuminating the face of the pursuer. It was Luo Pei, the chosen disciple of the Sea Breeze clan. You really want to kill me? Rhodes gritted his teeth and his whole body trembled. If I don't kill you, how can I obtain the battle angel's blessing? Luo Pei tilted her head, and her face was filled with a smile. If you want to blame someone, blame it on your own incompetence. Rhodes, see you in the next life. The blade of the sword trembled, and endless light energy surged into it, as if it was going to melt this godly weapon. Rhodes' face was filled with horror and pain. Although he was also a cultivator between the 20th and 30th Grotto Heaven Realm, Rhodes was completely powerless to resist. Not only was Luo Pei stronger than him in terms of strength, but she also completely surpassed him in terms of martial arts and battle techniques. This was also the reason why he was defeated within 10 moves. Peng! Divine power erupted, and in the blink of an eye, the ribs in front of Rhodes' chest were burned to ashes, and his life was gone. His body was like a fallen leaf that was blown away by the wind, and it just happened to fall in the direction of Sheen. He landed on the ground with his head raised and he slid far away. His chest was burning and he was only 1 meter away from Sheen. A pair of eyes filled with fear and unwillingness looked at her. Not good. Sheen's heart turned cold. What a coincidence, Rhodes' corpse just happened to expose her hiding place. She hurriedly leaped backward. Sheen? Luo Pei was slightly stunned. She stepped on Rhodes' corpse with her battle boots, and reached out her hand to pull off his name tag from his neck. She almost broke Rhodes' neck. She raised her head to look at Sheen, who was standing on the hill, and smiled. Don't be afraid. We are in the same group, and Road is just a pitiful individual. Why don't we work together? This way, no one in the entire Lost Forest will be our match. Oh, is that so? Sheen's expression was calm. Of course. Luo Pei spread out her hands and smiled. You should have heard of our Sea Breeze clan, right? I don't know. Haha, no wonder. You were originally a lost god from the banished land. Luo Pei smiled. The Sea Breeze clan is located in the distant southern border, and has the ruling power of 104 galaxies. Under our clan's command there are 7 regular legions, and each legion has at least 1 million people. If you are willing to work with me, I will recommend you to join our clan. With your potential, perhaps you can become a legion commander within 10 years. Is that so? Sheen seemed to understand something and said, then let's work together. But, shouldn't you share your spoils of war with me as well? Luo Pei looked at Road's name tag in her hand, laughed and threw it out. Sheen caught it and put it into the bag on her waist. She said, let's go and look for the next target. Okay. The two tacitly chose to walk side by side. Not long after, a powerful aura appeared in front of them, but it was not a participant, but a grizzly bear that was at least 10,000 years old. It's a mountain grizzly bear. Luo Pei suddenly crouched on the ground and said, don't underestimate this big guy. One slap is enough to shatter a god's aura, so we'd better be careful. One on the left, one on the right. I will bluff to attract its attention from the left, and Sheen, you launch a fatal blow from the right. Remember, it must be a fatal blow. We can't waste too much divine power on beasts. Okay. Sheen nodded. The two separated and Luo Pei flew to the left, raised her sword and burst into light. She laughed and said, hey you idiot, come and eat me if you have such a good appetite. Roar roar roar, the mountain grizzly bear galloped away. Swoosh. Sheen's figure turned into a stream of light, and the star sword in his hand, which contained divine power, stabbed straight at the back of the mountain grizzly bear. But at this moment, a crack suddenly appeared beside him and a plane crack appeared. It was the ability to travel between planes. A familiar voice sounded in his ear, but you are more terrible than the mountain grizzly bear. The burning sword light stabbed at Sheen's neck at an extremely fast speed. Just as Luo Pei said, humans were more terrible than beasts. The attack that he had been waiting for was actually reserved for his companion. However, Sheen would not simply believe the other party as if he had foreseen all this. When Luo Pei's sword was about to fall, Sheen's body suddenly sank, and he barely avoided this fatal blow. At the same time, he raised his ankle and kicked Luo Pei's abdomen with a golden dragon crystal. Bang! Golden rays of light splashed in all directions, and Luo Pei could not help but let out a muffled groan as he felt a heart-wrenching pain in his abdomen. However, that was not the end of it. Shi Yin's sword pierced into his right leg, and a halo of light blossomed, completely breaking through Luo Pei's protective divine power wall. Roar! A black shadow descended from the sky. It was the mountain grizzly bear. It pounced down from above, and its sharp claws slapped on Luo Pei's shoulders. It opened its mouth and bit off more than half of Luo Pei's head. With another bite, the entire head was bitten off, and it was a horrible sight. Sheen quickly retreated, and she opened her hand and sucked Luo Pei's nameplate over. This way she already had 2 nameplates. As long as she did not die, she was almost destined to be in the top 3. Swoosh. Her figure hid in the dark forest and did not appear again. In the air, a god emperor-level instructor with his arms crossed watched coldly. He could not help but laugh. Interesting, what a ruthless little girl. No wonder even Deputy Dean Li Fei said that the people in this god's chosen trial are very strong. Bang! When it was close to dawn in another direction of the Lost Forest, a corpse fell heavily to the ground. It was also a candidate from a different plane. Ding! Dora's arm was covered in the golden blood of the gods. She took off the nameplate of the dead man and hung it on her chest. On her chest there were a total of 5 nameplates flashing. This meant that she had already killed 4 people. Dora suddenly turned around and looked at the other side of the mountain range. There was a ripple of divine power. She could not help but laugh, and her beautiful face was full of malevolence. Terilyn, I found you. Swoosh. Her figure suddenly disappeared. Dora was like a goshawk falling from the sky, pouncing on its prey. The prey was Terilyn, who was holding a thin sword and running in the forest. 2 nameplates were hanging on Terilyn's chest, and her arm was injured and stained with blood. Die, Terilyn. Dora abruptly raised his long sword, and a brilliant light burst forth, illuminating the entire forest as if it were daytime. Terralyn raised her head to look at the sky, her face full of horror. At this time, Li Fei's voice came from the distant sky. The number of surviving participants is 10. The trial is over. All participants, come to me and calculate the results. The trial is over, Terralyn shouted. She knew that she was no match for Dora. However, Dora did not have the slightest intention of stopping. Her eyes were full of malevolence as she shouted, "Childish. The winner does not need 10 people. All of you can die." Chapter 803. Bang! The soil flew up and the beam of light almost penetrated the ground for dozens of meters. A wisp of blood floated in the air. In less than 10 moves, Terralyn was defeated. Her body flew backward in the jungle like a cannonball, only stopping after smashing through countless trees. Her body was covered with thorns and bushes. Ugh! Terralyn quickly sat up and spat out a mouthful of blood. She knew she was running out of time. Dora's figure was like a phantom that came with the wind, constantly expanding the law of light divine power on the verge of erupting. How could this be? A stream of blood flowed down from Terralyn's forehead and into her eyes, mixing with her tears. She wailed in a low voice. As an outstanding member of the younger generation of the Light Clan, was she going to die here? Moreover, the Light Clan's patriarch had already told the trial field to not let Terralyn die no matter what. But where were the instructors in front of her? Hundreds of meters above the ground, Li Fei, Kulun, and the other instructors stood proudly in the air, overlooking everything in the forest. Their eyes were covered with a faint golden luster, which allowed them to see everything on the ground more easily. Are we really not going to help? Dora wants to kill Terralyn. If Terralyn dies, the old monsters of the Radiant Clan will never let us off. I heard that they dote on Terralyn to the heavens in the Radiant Clan. An instructor said. Li Fei shook her head. No, we don't have to help. What? Kulun held a ball of light in his hand. Li Fei's lips curled up. These 10 people will all become battle angels, but there can only be one level 7 battle angel. Don't you want to see a winner between Dora and Sheen? This? Kulun's voice was cold. At the cost of Terralyn's life? That's crazy. Shut up, this is the will of the ruler. Kulun was silent. The light grew closer and closer, so bright that it was almost impossible to open one's eyes. Dola held a blazing sun in her hand, and her domain descended upon Terralyn, making it almost impossible for her to move. Only the heavens knew how such a young woman could unleash such a powerful domain. Goodbye, father. Terralyn knew that her death was near. She closed her eyes and her bruised body trembled slightly. Buzz. Dola raised this powerful ball of law of light and smashed it down, intending to destroy the entire forgotten forest. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded in Terralyn's ears. Open your eyes and form a wall of light to protect yourself. Was Sheen? Terralyn suddenly opened her eyes. She didn't see Sheen, but she found that she had escaped from Dora's domain. She hurriedly sat up and opened her hands to condense the energy of the light wall. This was the only power that could protect her from harm. In the air, the dazzling light made it difficult to open one's eyes, but Terralyn knew that a force that was not inferior to Dora's had appeared. Boom. An explosion sounded in the dark night. The two forces collided continuously, producing as many as 7 sharp explosions in a second. It was as if the entire forgotten forest was about to be destroyed. Waves of shockwaves swept across the surroundings. Terralyn furrowed her brows and forcibly protected herself with a barrier of light, but she felt a chill in her heart. She knew that the battle between Sheen and Dora was happening in the blurry barrier of light. She was of the same generation as them, but the disparity in strength between them was so great that it was hard for her to accept this fact. The light sound echoed endlessly, and the victor had been decided. A figure fell from the sky and landed heavily in the forest. Light splashed everywhere, and a gully of at least 100 meters was left on the ground. It was as if a meteorite had fallen from the sky. Amidst the lingering smoke, Dora struggled to stand up with the help of her longsword. Her body trembled slightly and she looked up at the sky and murmured, "What the hell are you?" The sky was dark, and Sheen's petite body was almost completely invisible. Her voice was also very soft as she said, "The trial is over. Unnecessary killing is not a trial, it is bloodthirst." "You bastard." Dora gritted her teeth. At this moment, Li Fei and the other God Emperor level instructors landed one after another, and participants from all directions were constantly gathering. The trial was really over. "Terralyn, are you okay?" Li Fei asked calmly. Terralyn shook her head and stood up by herself. I'm fine. Thank you for your concern, Vice Dean. You're welcome. Li Fei looked around and saw that there were only 10 participants left. Congratulations, you will all receive the Battle Angel's inheritance and blessing. I now announce that Dora obtained the most nameplates, but she was just defeated by Sheen, so Sheen is the final number 1 in this God's Chosen trial. Dora is ranked 2nd, Terralyn, Lake and Zhou Ximin are ranked 3rd, and the rest are all in the top 10. Tomorrow morning, all of you will gather at the trial hall and follow me to the temple. The ruler will personally host the Battle Angel inheritance and blessing ceremony for you. Yes. Now all of you stand beside me. Everyone approached. Li Fei stepped on the ground and shouted. In the blink of an eye, everyone disappeared from the empty forest. Air swirled, and the empty forest returned to its original peace. If they wanted to liven up again, they would have to wait for another 100 years. After dinner, the dormitory was empty except for Sheen and Terralyn. The other girl had already been killed by Dora in the final trial. Sheen leaned against the headboard and closed her eyes. The power of the law of light slowly circled around her. She was still cultivating. Thank you, Sheen. Terralyn, who was flipping through an ancient book, suddenly turned around and sincerely said, If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid I would have been killed by Dora. Sheen turned to look at her. No need to thank me. So many people participated in the God's Chosen trial, and only 10 people were left. We should cherish each other. In the future we won't have such a friendship again. Terralyn muttered. I heard that Luo Pei was killed by you. Yes, he was courting death. Sheen's voice was calm. Terralyn smiled. Then if you meet me before the top 10 are decided, Sheen, will you kill me? Sheen looked at her indifferently. After a few seconds she said, In the Lost Forest, it's not that I can't feel your aura. If I want to find you, it's as easy as flipping my hand. Terralyn was startled. The fear on her face disappeared in a flash, and was replaced by a smile from the bottom of her heart. Sheen, we're friends from now on, right? Sheen smiled. Yes. Lake and Zhou Ximin grew up with me. They're not bad people. Maybe we can unite in the future, although Lake seems to want to pursue you. Lake? Sheen smiled. I remember this person, but I don't have a deep impression of him. Sheen, Lake is handsome and not weak. Will you be together with him? Be together? Sheen couldn't help but smile. I've never thought about it. Moreover, I can feel that there's someone waiting for me. I want to be with him and there won't be anyone else. Who is it that our Miss Sheen thinks so highly of? I don't know. I can't remember him. Sheen leaned her head against the headboard and said helplessly. Terralyn closed her book and smiled. It's okay. I'll accompany you. We'll go find him together. Yes. Sheen nodded and thought for a moment. Terralyn, there are a total of 10 of us who will receive the Battle Angel's inheritance. But I feel that things won't be so simple. You have to be mentally prepared. Perhaps what awaits us isn't great power or a noble status, but something else. Yes, I know. This year's Chosen of God trial is indeed strange, but I can't say what it is. Sleep early. You'll receive the inheritance tomorrow. Okay. The next morning, the 10 participants woke up early. After eating breakfast, they gathered in the trial hall. This time, not only was Li Fei present, but there was also another familiar figure. Xian. The blazing angel had arrived. Xian smiled. When she saw Sheen, she opened her arms and hugged her. She patted her back and said, Sheen, you really didn't disappoint me. Congratulations, you will become a powerful rank 7 battle angel. Sheen was a bit dazed, but she still smiled and said, Thank you, Lady Xian. Li Fei said respectfully, Since everyone is here, Lady Xian, shall we go? Yes. Xian lifted her foot and lightly stomped on the ground. Immediately, rays of golden light surrounded the feet of everyone in the hall. With a so sound, everyone's body was pulled into a different plane. After passing through, they easily arrived outside a dignified and solemn building. Giant pillars rose into the sky, hidden in the clouds. This building was actually hundreds of meters tall. It was breathtaking. God Temple, the holiest place in the Western Divine Realm. Follow me. Xian smiled and stepped into the God Temple. The participants followed Xian in. The inside of the temple was very spacious. In the center of the temple there was a magic seal on the ground. Dozens of meters around it were divine servants. These divine servants were wearing white robes, and their faces were hidden under their hoods. They were chanting something. In the center of the temple, there was a luxurious throne. A person was sitting on the throne, and his body was shrouded in a light curtain. No one could see his appearance. Ruler Claude. Congratulations, my children. Claude smiled faintly. Sheen frowned. Claude's voice made her hair stand on end. Terrelin, Lake and the others looked at each other in shock. Although they were all well-known figures of their families, none of them had actually seen Ruler Claude. Even their parents might not have had the honor of seeing him. Dora looked straight at Claude. His eyes were not filled with reverence but with faith and fanaticism. Claude was the symbol of power and prestige, so Dora naturally felt a sense of servitude and admiration towards him. Chapter 804. You are all the cream of the crop in the divine realm, powerful gods who will rule the various planes in the future. May the holy light protect you forever. Claude's voice was very calm. Now I will carry out the Battle Angel inheritance and blessing ceremony for you. Remember, Battle Angel is just a title, not a true angel. As long as you become a Battle Angel, you will have a chance to break through to become a four-winged Radiant Angel. When that time comes, you will be the mainstay of the divine realm. The group of contestants listened respectfully to the ruler's teachings in silence. The two seraphs, Xian and Eva, floated to Claude's left and right, one on each side. They looked at the contestants leisurely. Xian said, one by one. 10th place, you go first. The 10th place was a contestant carrying a heavy shield. He respectfully came to the center of the temple and stood still. He knelt on one knee and said, Thank you, Lord Ruler, for your blessing. Claude, who was shrouded in the light, had an indiscernible expression on his face. He merely smiled and waved his hand. In an instant, a powerful wave of divine power enveloped the candidate's body. With a low growl, he fell to his knees as though he was in great pain. His blood was pumping and his veins were bulging. A strange light elemental power surged in his body, as though it was about to burst his body. Patter. In the sky above the temple, the thousands of statues gathered their palms together. Drops of holy water condensed together. Suddenly, a drop fell, falling straight on the contestant's head. Immediately, a golden light burst out. Ah! The contestant finally couldn't help but scream. His body twisted and struggled, and the shield in his hand repeatedly knocked against the stone bricks. About 2 minutes later, the light dissipated. He lay on the ground powerlessly, but a pair of blood-red light wings flickered behind him. He had received the inheritance. Blood-winged Battle Angel. The corner of Xian's mouth rose. Eva said, I still remember the scene when I received the blood-winged Battle Angel's inheritance. It was a nightmare. It hurt so much. Cough, cough. Claude coughed behind him, signaling the two restless seraphs to focus on the ritual and not speak nonsense. In the center, the newborn blood-winged Battle Angel knelt on one knee and said solemnly, Thank you for your blessings, Lord Juggernaut. I will do my best to dedicate my life to light and justice. Claude nodded. Go next. Number 9, step forward, Xian reminded. The 9th place was a girl. She walked up a little awkwardly and knelt down on one knee to receive the inheritance just like the others before her. Soon it was Zhou Ximin, Lake and the others' turn. They had all obtained the level 6 Battle Angel's legacy and all had blood wings. When a pair of blood wings appeared behind Lake, Terrelin whispered, How do you feel? Lake's face was filled with excitement. Thank you, Sovereign Lord. Thank you, Radiant Light. I can sense that my power is greater than ever before. Compared to before the inheritance? Double the power. Oh my God. Terrelin opened her mouth wide, seemingly looking forward to the inheritance blessing even more. Number 3, Terrelin, Xian said softly. Terrelin stepped forward and knelt on one knee. Not long after, a pair of blood wings appeared behind her. Her power of light greatly increased, and her entire temperament seemed to have changed. The confidence on her face became incomparably proud. When she saw Sheen and Dora again, Terrelin could clearly feel that her power surpassed theirs. Number 2, Dora. Xian frowned. She did not like Dora because this kind of woman who would do anything for power was actually very annoying and frightening. It was said that in order to learn the martial arts of the Sea Breeze clan in the trial, Dora did not even hesitate to sell her body and sleep with Luo Pei. However, Luo Pei had already been killed by Sheen, and she did not feel any pity and was completely indifferent. Dora piously stepped forward and knelt on one knee saying, Thank you, Lord Juggernaut. I will be loyal to the light for life. Claude smiled in satisfaction and raised his hand to activate his divine power to bless. Whoosh, whoosh, waves of golden air reverberated around Dora. She cried out miserably and fell to the ground, as if her reaction was very strong. Li Fei could not help but frown. What's going on? With Dora's cultivation she shouldn't be in so much pain, right? Xiyin squinted her beautiful eyes. Is it the power of darkness? Eva opened her mouth but did not say anything. Ah! Dora's screams grew louder and louder. She was practically rolling on the ground. This did not seem like a blessing but more like a curse. Lord Juggernaut, what's going on? Xiyin asked. Claude's gaze was cold. Pain is just to make her stronger. Everyone just watched and even felt a little sorry for her. Although Dora was bloodthirsty and cruel, making her suffer like this made people feel pity. Finally, after howling for nearly 5 minutes in the golden light, Dora slowly stood up, trembling. Behind him, a pair of black light wings unfurled with a whoosh. Heavens, a black-winged battle angel. Eva cried out in surprise. Black-winged battle angels, a cursed branch of the battle angel race. What's a black-winged battle angel? Sheen was confused. The shock on Terraline's face had yet to fade, but she still explained, battle angels are divided into 3 categories. One is the blood-winged battle angel, like us, and the other is the black-winged battle angel. Legend has it that the black-winged battle angel is a cursed member of the angel race. Their strength is lower than the blood-winged battle angel, but as long as they continue to kill and absorb blood, their strength will increase, even far surpassing the blood-winged battle angel. There's another type of battle angel, but it's only a legend. No one knows. Sheen fell silent. In the center of the temple, Dora knelt on the cold stone bricks, her whole body trembling, not out of fear but out of excitement. Her face was full of a seductive smile. She knew that with her current strength, even 3 Sheens wouldn't be a match for her, because after transforming into a black-winged battle angel, she had broken through to the 50th heaven realm. Blessings and inheritances were ways to imbue divine power into one's body, greatly stimulating one's potential. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many high-level cultivators in the Western divine realm, and they wouldn't be able to compete with the East heaven at all. Terraline, for example, was originally at the 29th heaven realm, but after receiving the blessing of the blood-winged battle angel, she broke through to the 45th heaven realm. In the future, when she obtained 4 or 6 wings, her cultivation would greatly increase. Angel wings were the privilege of the Western divine realm, and also their advantage. First place, Sheen, accept the inheritance. Xiyin smiled. She really didn't know how to hide her feelings, and her likes and dislikes were completely written on her face. Sheen stepped forward, and when he brushed past Dora, Dora sneered, and an almost inaudible voice floated into Sheen's ears. You better be able to inherit something stronger than me or else I'll definitely kill you. Sheen didn't say anything and only walked forward and knelt on one knee. The corner of Claude's mouth rose, and he raised his hand to carry out the inheritance ceremony. Whoosh, 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 waves of golden air swirled, and in the blink of an eye, it was like a storm had wrapped around Sheen's body. Instantly, a powerful force spread out, and even the entire temple trembled slightly. Dark clouds gathered outside and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Xiyin looked at the sky outside in surprise. Eva opened her small mouth, and her eyes squinted as she smiled. This year's Chosen of the Gods trial is really interesting. Claude was even more stunned, and he stared straight at Sheen, who was enveloped in the light screen. Among everyone present, only he could see through the layers of golden light. Outside, Dora clenched her fists, and her eyes were filled with anger and hostility. Even the black wings on her back spread out involuntarily, as if she was ready for a fierce battle. Terraline, Lake, and the others looked at each other. Sheen's power was getting stronger and stronger, and it was rising higher and higher, to the point where they felt an inexplicable sense of submission. So powerful. Li Fei couldn't help but click her tongue. Kulin clenched his fists. Sheen, what kind of identity does she have to actually have such powerful light divine power? Who knows? The golden shockwaves became thinner and thinner. When the golden mist dissipated, Sheen was still kneeling on one knee. However, a pair of golden wings had appeared on her back. Golden-winged battle angel. Eva took a few steps back and her face was filled with shock. Sheen actually inherited the golden-winged battle angel. Oh my god, what a blessing. Claude almost couldn't sit still anymore. He coughed and said, Not bad, Sheen, you really didn't let us down. The first place of this year's Chosen of the Gods trial is actually the golden-winged battle angel. Very good. Terraline was dumbfounded. Lake murmured, Sheen's aura is so powerful. She's at least at the 50th level of Grotto Heaven. Zhou Shimin's expression was solemn. What's a golden-winged battle angel? Instructor Kulin's face was full of excitement as he explained in a low voice, "The Golden Wing Battle Angel is the king of the Battle Angel race, superior to the Blood Wing Battle Angels and Black Wing Battle Angels. There's only one in 10,000, and legend has it that there hasn't been a Golden Wing Battle Angel in the past 100,000 years. I originally thought this was just a legend, but it seems like it isn't. Legend has it that the Golden Wing Battle Angel is about 50% stronger than the Blood Wing Battle Angel." Zhou Shimin was shocked. Sheen stood up, hid her wings and returned to her original position. She glanced at Dora beside her and said calmly, "Now, do you still want to kill me?" Dora gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, "Then you have to be careful when you sleep at night." "Okay, I welcome you at any time." The corner of Sheen's mouth rose and she said, "Even if you don't come looking for me, I will come looking for you. Don't worry." This time it was Dora's turn to feel uneasy. Being targeted by a Golden Wing Battle Angel was not a good thing. Claude stood up, and his body was enveloped by a holy light. He smiled and said, "Congratulations, the 10 of you have become the cream of the crop among the Battle Angels. This time's Chosen of God trial is not so simple. You will receive a new mission, and you will form a team of 10 to complete a mission that concerns the future of the entire Western Divine Realm. You have 3 days to rest and that's it. Sheen, you stay behind." "Yes, my lord." Chapter 805. The Divine Servants retreated with the lamps in their hands. In the blink of an eye, the hall was empty except for Claude, Sheen, Shiyen and Eva. Sheen was a bit confused. "Ruler, why did you ask me to stay?" Claude calmly said, "You have the power of the Azura in your body. You should understand that, right?" Sheen didn't expect that Claude already knew about this. "Sheen." Claude looked at her with a gentle gaze. "People with the power of darkness in their bodies cannot become true angels. Although you've already completed the inheritance of a level 7 Golden Wing Battle Angel, the power of the Azura in your body will definitely affect your future growth. So, this time we must completely dispel the power of the Azura and let you become a pure law god of light." Sheen remained silent. Shiyen said, "Sheen, the ruler will use the Lost Paradise to purify your body, but the Lost Paradise is a cursed god artifact. You'd best think carefully before agreeing. Since ancient times, very few people have ever been able to leave the Lost Paradise. Even god emperors might not be able to do so." Her words were undoubtedly a warning to Sheen. "Shiyen, don't be so talkative," Claude said unhappily. "Yes, ruler." Shiyen lowered her head, her eyes flashing with unease. "Sheen, have you thought it through?" Claude asked. Rather than saying it was a question, it was better to say that it was a form of coercion. "Yes, ruler." Sheen had no choice but to submit to a fate that she couldn't control. "Good. Make your preparations. We'll enter the Lost Paradise in 2 hours. "Yes." Outside the hall, a cold wind blew, causing Claude and Shiyen's robes to flutter. "Shiyen." "Ruler. Are you unable to see where you are?" Claude asked. Shiyen bit her red lips and did not continue speaking. "Sheen is just a wandering soul from the banished land. Is it really worth it for you to go against my will?" Claude asked. The Great Sovereign said that Sheen is nothing more than a wandering soul from another plane. Why should we make things difficult for her? She has already experienced many hardships. If she were to perish in the Lost Paradise now, where would the Heavenly Tao be? "Heavenly Tao." Claude smiled. "Shiyen, is she really a wandering soul from another plane?" "My lord, what do you mean?" "Don't play dumb." Claude's voice was cold. No matter how Sheen tries to hide it, she can't hide her sharpness. The divine spark in Sheen's Ehai is an incomplete divine spark of the law of light. The ability she uses is called the Celestial Dragon Crystal. In all the planes of the universe, there's only one person who fits that description, and that's Qin. Claude's eyes were full of cold light. He looked at Shiyen with his sword-like eyes and said, "You are also a top expert with the cultivation of the 99th level of heavens. Can't you see this? Rather than playing dumb, it's better to say that you want to help Qin, right?" Shiyen was at a loss. "Shiyen, you're too kind." Claude said, "If it weren't for kindness, there wouldn't be a second seraph in the Western Divine Realm, right? There's nothing bad about Eva becoming a seraph. Even if that's the case, there's no room for negotiation on this matter with Sheen." Claude suddenly opened his palm, and a dazzling ice crystal appeared in his palm. "Even though Sheen was Qin in her previous life, I want her to be baptized in the Lost Paradise. She'll forget everything and become a divine general of the Western Divine Realm." My lord, what are you going to do? Have you heard of soul forging? My lord. Shi Yin immediately knelt down, her face full of pity. Please have mercy, my lord. Once her soul forging, I'm afraid Sheen will never remember who she is. Please reconsider. Say no more. I've made up my mind. Claude said, if Sheen doesn't enter the Lost Paradise, then there's only one outcome for her. Her chief god divine core will be taken away. A wandering soul from another plane doesn't deserve the chief god divine core of the law of light. This chief god divine core can only stay in the Western divine realm. Shi Yin looked desolate as she murmured, then, I'll listen to my lord and let Sheen enter the Lost Paradise. That's right. 2 hours later in the Great Hall. Sheen waited quietly. She had already changed into a new set of clothes that belonged to a battle angel. She wore a white shirt and a white skirt, and a cloak embroidered with golden edges. Even her collar was embroidered with a golden cross pattern of the Western divine realm. She stood there quietly, as beautiful as a perfect goddess statue. Sheen's looks are second to none even in the Western divine realm. Eva sighed. Claude couldn't help but snort coldly. As a blazing angel, you're actually so immersed in your appearance. I'm a woman after all. A man like you won't understand. I don't want to understand either. Claude walked up and asked, Sheen, are you ready? Yes, Juggernaut. Very good. Claude suddenly opened his palm, and the Lost Paradise in the form of an ice crystal shone with a dazzling light. In the blink of an eye, it transformed and became as dazzling as a star. Claude said, all right, you can enter the Lost Paradise at any time. As long as you can survive for 3 days, the Lost Paradise will automatically send you out. Yes, thank you, Juggernaut. Wait, Sheen, Shi Yin suddenly said. Sheen was stunned. Lady Shi Yin? Don't call me lady, call me big sister. Shi Yin sighed. Sheen smiled. Big sister Hyen. All right, Shi Yin smiled miserably and said, come back alive. Sheen didn't say anything else. She turned around and leaped into the Lost Paradise. With a swoosh, the world spun around her as her body was pulled down by a powerful force. There seemed to be no end to this. One plane after another flashed before her eyes, and some of them seemed to bring back memories of the past. However, Sheen didn't even have time to think about it. Suddenly, the light in front of her shone brightly, and she fell into an illusory world. Everything around her was the color of blood, and she couldn't see anything. This is the Lost Paradise? She murmured. This is what the Lost Paradise looks like. Buzz? A ripple appeared in the illusory space in front of her, and a middle-aged man in a long robe walked out. His face was filled with benevolence and he said with a smile, Xiaoyin, you're back. Behind him, the scenery continued to blur, forming into the shape of a majestic palace. There were also some guards in white robes and silver armor standing guard at the side. That was the Zetian Palace, and the man in front of her was Qin Jin. However, Sheen didn't remember him at all. Who are you? She asked in a small voice. The middle-aged man smiled. After a long time he said, I am your father, Xiaoyin. How did you get so far away? So far that Imperial Father can no longer see you. Qin was stunned. Imperial Father? Who exactly are you? Qin Jin's smile was still gentle. Xiaoyin, don't wander anymore. Return to Yu's side. That's our home. My poor daughter, you've suffered so much. Don't wander anymore. Imperial Father will always be watching over you. His body was abruptly torn apart by time, and what replaced it was a vast expanse of fertile land. The sounds of battle rang out everywhere. Countless cavalry and infantry charged on the battlefield. The Empire's war flag swayed, but it fell again, and was then trampled by the enemy's iron hooves, filling the ground with mud. Amidst the dripping blood, a young general was covered in blood as he staggered toward Sheen. There were a few arrows in his shoulder and chest, and his leg had been pierced by an enemy's spear. He couldn't walk very well. He dragged his right leg as he walked over step by step, using his long sword to support himself on the ground. That long sword was very familiar, it was Sheen's stellar sword. Xiaoyin. He walked over step by step. Blood flowed down his face, but there was a doting smile on his lips. Xiaoyin, you're back? I've waited for you for 5 years, 5 years. It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. The sound of iron hooves could be heard, and a huge black shadow descended from the sky. It was a general who was completely pitch black, and he stepped on Sheen's back. He vomited blood and his whole body fell to the ground in a sorry state. He was firmly stepped on by the enemy general. Xiaoyin. My Xiaoyin. Blood and tears flowed out of his eyes. He raised his head and looked at Qin. Pfft. The enemy's spear pierced through his chest, and his whole body was nailed to the ground. Qin's whole body trembled. She knew him. No. No. She shouted with all her might, but it was to no avail. The enemy general pulled out his sword and grabbed Qin's short hair. The sword flashed and blood spurted into the sky. The next moment, his head was already in the enemy's hand. No. Qin knelt down and his whole body was on the verge of collapsing. The scene was torn apart again. The surroundings were a sea of blood, and countless corpses were lying on the battlefield. Broken spears and halberds were scattered all over the ground, and the war flag was on the ground, soaked in blood. The empire had failed. Qin didn't know what the scene in front of her meant, but she felt as if her heart was being pierced by a sharp knife. Tears flowed down her face and she knelt on the ground, sobbing bitterly. The lost paradise, the place where all the joy of the world was lost. What was the end of pain? It was heartlessness and it was forgetting everything. Qin's whole body trembled, and she lay on the ground full of corpses. She was like a drop in the ocean of desolation and loneliness. Suddenly sitting up, Lin Muyu sat up from the bed, sweating profusely. Her mind recalled the nightmare just now and she murmured, Xiaoyin, Xiaoyin. Not far away, Baiyin, who was sleeping outside the door, also woke up. He hurriedly asked, Your Highness, what's wrong? It's nothing, it's nothing. Lin Muyu said softly, I just had a nightmare, it's just a false alarm. Baiyin, what time is it now? It's 2:45 in the morning. Oh, is there any news from the East Coast? Not yet, Your Highness need not worry. Go to sleep. Chapter 806. Early in the morning, the area outside Winterfrost City was bustling with activity. Many magic crystal cannons were escorted by soldiers as they slowly entered the eastern capital. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi stood on the city gate tower, watching as the magic crystal cannons entered the city one by one. Banners fluttered in the distance. Another army had arrived at Winterfrost City. They were the demons from the Endless Forest. A Fox clan general galloped over on his horse, cupped his fists respectfully and said, Princess Shi, we've arrived. Tang Xiaoxi nodded. Thank you. Where's Ling Hu Yan? The saint will be here soon. Set up camp 5 least to the south of Winterfrost City. Later on, the supplies department will head over to calculate all the demon army's needs and provide them to you. But if there's anything inappropriate, you can report to me. Yes, Your Highness. Feng Jixing looked at the demon army in the distance with a solemn expression, pursed his lips and said, I hope that the demon's arrival will be able to turn the tides of this war. How many magic crystal cannons do we still have that haven't been shipped over? There's still quite a lot, Qin Xiling said respectfully. Prince Xian, you've also seen it. The magic crystal cannons that entered the city earlier are all huge cannons with a diameter of 80 centimeters. They are the most powerful among the magic crystal cannons we have. A single cannon shot can flatten a small mountain. Therefore, these magic crystal cannons basically require 10 short carriages to move. It's very labor-intensive. Otherwise, logically speaking, they would have arrived at the eastern capital 10 days ago. How's the situation with the defenses along the coast? Feng Jixing asked. Everything is in place, Qin Xiling said with a smile. We've set up enough magic crystal cannons at all the ports that can reach the coast. Their firing range can extend to at least 1 li out into the sea. If the enemy wishes to forcefully land, they'll have a taste of the prowess of the magic crystal cannons. All right. Feng Jixing smiled. I'm relieved now. I've already mastered the 9 heavens Vajra barrier. When should we spar? Use 50% of your strength. You've already mastered the 9 heavens Vajra barrier? Lin Muyu was stunned. Yeah. Feng Jixing's face was full of smiles as he muttered to himself softly. Suddenly, a faint golden wall of light surrounded his body. Sure enough, it gave people an exceptionally honest feeling. The highest realm of the diamond body protection was not fake. The Vajra barrier, the 8th heavens God Force barrier, and the 9th heavens battle Vajra all required God Force as the source of energy. Before this, Feng Jixing hadn't stepped into the God realm, so he was unable to cultivate them. Now that he had obtained the forged immortal lattice, he was able to cultivate them in one go. At this moment, in terms of defense, he was probably on par with Lin Muyu, who had the gourd wall and the supreme being lattice. And let's spar again when we have time. Lin Muyu smiled with relief, but she secretly sighed that she didn't have enough energy. Just practicing the star tactics and the cultivation of spirit tactics was enough to make her tired, and she didn't have time to practice the diamond body fortification. She had no choice. Her cultivation was based on attacking and every move was fierce. This was probably the price to pay for the strongest attack at the expense of defense. At this moment, a rider flew over from afar and reported. "Reporting to your highnesses, there's a situation in the Eastern Sea." Feng Jixing said. "We just received news from Yushu that 3 dragon knights have appeared over 1,000 kilometers east of Blue Wind Harbor. Their flying speed is extremely fast, and according to the speed of the messenger birds, they will arrive at Blue Wind Harbor in less than an hour." "What, an hour?" Feng Jixing was shocked. Lin Muyu asked, "How many troops are stationed at Blue Wind Harbor?" Wei Qiu respectfully cupped his fists. "It's the Courage Dragon Battalion's 20,000 soldiers. In addition, there are close to 20 magic crystal cannons and countless strong bows and hard crossbows. The Divine Might Battalion's encampment is less than 10 kilometers away from the Blue Wind Harbor. Duke Fan's 100,000 elite soldiers are stationed there and can be deployed at any time." Lin Muyu pondered for a moment, then asked, "Then which country are the Dragon Knights from?" "We don't know," the messenger replied. Feng Jixing pressed his hand on the hilt of the Crimson Phoenix and said, Shall we go and meet these Dragon Knights?" "All right." Lin Muyu ordered. "Ouyang Yan, you and Sister Chu Yao stay behind to guard Winterfrost City. Big brother Feng Shaoxi and I will immediately head to Blue Wind Harbor. Wei Qiu, you go to the Divine Might camp and order them to break camp and approach Blue Wind Harbor immediately." "Yes." Tang Xiaoxi stuck out her tongue. 3 Dragon Knights shouldn't be enough to make us mobilize so many people, right? Who knows if it's 3 or more. Xiaoxi, don't forget, most of the Dragon Knights are at the Divine Realm. They can shatter space and fly. The moment they conceal their presence and fly over the sea, hundreds of Dragon Knights could descend upon Blue Wind Harbor in an instant. At that time, I'm afraid we will be unprepared." "Yes, let's go." The 3 Divine Realm experts exerted their strength together, and 3 consecutive explosions appeared above the city. In the blink of an eye, they had already flown half a kilometer away. So powerful, Wei Qiu, Situ Sen, Zhang Wei and the others took a deep breath, admiring and envious. The Divine Realm, that was a supreme realm that mortals revere and yearn for. Blue Wind Harbor, a harbor that was built 5 years ago, had now developed into a small town. Due to the inconvenience of land transportation, many cities in Lingnan and North Ridge had switched from land transportation to sea transportation to save time and effort. There were countless cargo ships in Blue Wind Harbor, and at the same time many Imperial warships were stationed there. When Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing and Tang Xiaoxi appeared in the sky above the harbor, they saw cavalry galloping past below. It was the patrol cavalry of the Longdan army camp. Their appearance for no reason added some desolate atmosphere to the harbor. Looking disdainfully at the people in the city, Tang Xiaoxi said, "Looks like the Dragon Knights haven't arrived yet." "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded and spread out her spirit pulse technique. She faintly sensed the direction of a few powerful auras and said, "On the sea, let's go there immediately." The 3 of them turned into 3 streams of light and headed straight for the sea. In the East Sea, a cool breeze blew and the waves were unrestrained. Over 10 merchant ships slowly sailed on the sea, and numerous blood-red flags with the image of a bear hung on the merchant ships. With a single glance, it was obvious that they were the ships of the Darkstone Empire, but all of them were merchant ships, and there were only a few guards. In the sky above the merchant ships, 3 huge figures flapped their wings and flew high. Dragon Knights. Among them, the leader of the Dragon Knights wore the badge of a high-ranking general. He had red hair and a handsome face full of killing intent. He looked into the distance and said with a smile, "Looks like the main force is coming to welcome us." A Dragon Knight behind him said cautiously, "Vice Commander Han Shu, are we really going to fly into the territorial waters of the Shattered Cauldron Realm? If we go any further, we might be attacked at any time. After all, we haven't signed the honorary Shang League with them yet. What are you afraid of?" Han Shu had a cold smile on his face. "This time, His Majesty sent us here to give them a warning. Moreover, I also want to experience the strength of the legendary sacred martial venerables of the Shattered Cauldron Realm. But Lord Commander said that we can't fight with them, lest we ruin our plans." "Shut up. A general can't obey the Emperor's orders in battle. Don't you understand such a simple logic? If Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing attack us, are we just going to sit and wait for death? Calm down, they will be here soon." "Yes." The 2 Dragon Knights behind him grabbed the reins together and caressed the neck of the huge dragon, comforting it and calming it down. Swish swish swish. 3 streams of light tore through the sky at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, 3 people wearing magnificent brocade cloaks appeared in the sky ahead. They were Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing and Tang Xiaoxi. Dang. The ice origin sword was unsheathed and emitted a sharp buzzing sound. Lin Muyu smiled faintly and said, "The territorial waters of the Qin Empire prohibit any foreign race army from entering. Lord Dragon Knights, please return." Han Shu laughed loudly and cupped his fists. "I believe this must be His Highness Emperor Qin of the Shattered Cauldron Realm?" "Yes, and you are?" "I am Han Shu, the Vice Commander and Dragon Knight of the Blackstone Empire, one of the sacred martial kings of the Empire." "Greetings, His Highness Emperor Qin." "So it's Lord Han Shu." Lin Muyu returned the greeting and said with a smile, "May I know why Lord Han Shu has come all the way to the territorial waters of the Qin Empire?" Han Shu said, "It's nothing much. It's just that Your Highness has seen it for yourself. These over 10 warships are filled with platinum and silver produced in our Blackstone Empire. His Majesty, the sacred martial emperor of the Blackstone Empire, has over 10 princesses and has long admired the exquisite brocade of the Shattered Cauldron Realm. His Majesty dotes on the princesses and thus wishes to use these gold and silver to exchange for some brocade and satin to make some nice clothes for the princesses. We Dragon Knights have been ordered to escort this batch of precious resources. Your Highness, please let us through." Feng Jixing frowned and said, "Even so, we still can't allow foreign armies to enter our territorial waters. Lord Han Shu, please understand. This must be Prince Xian Feng Jixing, right?" As expected, he has a dignified appearance. Han Shu stroked the short beard on his chin and said with a smile, "I've long heard that Prince Xian Feng Jixing is proficient in both the pen and the sword. You're well versed in the laws of wind, fire and thunder, and your peerless saber arts are unparalleled in the world." He narrowed his eyes. "Since Prince Xian doesn't agree to our request, then in order to show the friendship between our two countries, why don't we spar with martial arts and seek Your Highness' guidance? This way I, Han Shu, won't have to return empty-handed. At the very least, I'll be able to witness the demeanor of a hero from the Shattered Cauldron Realm." Feng Jixing's gaze was cold, and his 2 sabers were already enshrouded with gales and killing intent. "Wait a minute." Lin Muyu stopped their plan to spar and said with a smile, "Lord Han Shu, you're an expert at the sacred martial king realm while Big Brother Feng has only just stepped into the 17th level of the Grotto Heaven realm. If you challenge Big Brother Feng with your 57th level of the Grotto Heaven realm, won't you be seen as bullying the weak? I believe that the Blackstone Dragon Knights are righteous people and wouldn't do such a despicable thing, right?" It was true that Feng Jixing was definitely not a match for Han Shu. This was something that he himself was very clear about. Han Shu clenched his fists and said with a faint smile, "Then what does His Highness Prince Qin mean?" Lin Muyu smiled and said, "Prince Xian is my elder brother and is stronger than me. I can only be considered second in the Qin Empire. Lord Han Shu, 3 people have come this time around. Why don't you choose the second strongest among you to spar with me? How about it?" Han Shu was stunned. The gaze of a dragon knight who wore dark green armor behind him turned cold as he said, "Deputy Commander, since His Highness Prince Qin has issued a challenge, then we have no choice but to accept it." Gao Lian, think carefully. "He's Lin Muyu," Han Shu said with a disdainful gaze. "I know the pros and cons, Deputy Commander, please rest assured." "All right then." Chapter 807. I am Gao Lian, the leader of the Black Rock Dragon Cavalry's 9th Squad. I am also a Dragon Rider General and a Martial King. Gao Lian held his dragon spear, his eyes filled with arrogance as he smiled and said, "Your Highness, please enlighten me." Gao Lian's body pulsed with a total of 31 waves of divinity. He was a cultivator who had just stepped into the Martial King realm. Lin Muyu lowered her sword and silently looked at her opponent. Gao Lian wasn't that scary. Lin Muyu had already reached the Grotto Heaven realm and wasn't too far away from her opponent. Furthermore, with the strength of her supreme godhead, she might even be able to win. What was scary was Han Shu, who was standing behind Gao Lian. If Gao Lian lost, Han Shu would definitely make a move. At that time, it would be impossible to resolve the situation. However, they had no choice but to make a move. As long as they showed weakness with Han Shu's ruthless style, he might just kill all 3 of them. Lin Muyu had no other choice. "Please enlighten me, Your Highness." Gao Lian raised his dragon spear and suddenly roared. He rode on his dragon and flew over. The dragon's spear turned into a sharp cone that carried a whirlwind and pierced straight towards Lin Muyu's chest. It was extremely fast and ruthless. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. Almost no one saw how Lin Muyu blocked Gao Lian's attack. She used the fallen star steps in her battle boots, and every step she took caused ripples of blue light to form on the walls of the void. It was a beautiful sight to behold. Lin Muyu's speed was too fast, but she moved in the air as if she was walking on flat ground. In a twirl she arrived above Gao Lian's head. Her long sword slashed down sharply and the light was dazzling. Come at me. Gao Lian's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. He suddenly flipped the human dragon unity, twisting it as he waved it. Like a drawn bow, the tip of the bow contained a tremendous force as it flew towards Lin Muyu's blade. Bang! The raging flames collided with the gales, and the strong airflow forced several people in the surroundings to retreat. Even Han Shu and the other Dragon Knight had to retreat slightly on their giant dragons to avoid the shockwaves. Gao Lian's figure flipped, and the giant dragon became incomparably agile. At the same time, the giant dragon's body was enshrouded in a faint azure light, as if it was a star. That was a kind of domain-level power. Once Lin Muyu entered this domain, she would feel as if her feet were stuck in mud, and it was extremely uncomfortable. She had already experienced this ability when she was challenging Lei Wen. The dragon defense spiral was a technique that every dragon knight would eventually master. It was an ability that allowed humans and dragons to become one. Once a dragon knight mastered the dragon defense spiral, their combat strength would increase exponentially. Roar! The dragon let out an angry roar and bit down on Lin Muyu's leg. Be careful. Tang Xiaoxi was so scared that her face turned pale. Crack! The giant dragon bit empty air because Lin Muyu actually increased her speed at the critical moment. She turned into a bolt of lightning and flew toward its master with the giant dragon's wings. Her long sword was imbued with star power. 5 mountains descend from the heavens. Gao Lian's killing intent surged. He laughed loudly and raised his dragon spear to parry. Clang! Sparks flew. The two strength was evenly matched, and the 5 mountains descend from the heavens was neutralized just like that. However, Lin Muyu's speed was faster, and her change of moves was also faster. As the sword in her right hand spun, her left fist was already covered in frost, and it directly hit Gao Lian's shoulder. Icy jade frost. Gao Lian's entire body trembled, and a golden ripple surged out from his shoulder. The protective wall around his body was instantly shattered into pieces, and frost rapidly gathered on his shoulder. The numbing sensation was very piercingly cold, and his speed was also reduced. Lin Muyu's movements were smooth. After that punch, her body slanted, and her entire body was like a bow that was filled with energy. Her right leg was filled with the power of the Law of Ice, and it was still the power of icy jade frost. After Yang Li's Law of Ice cast Immortal Lattice was tempered, Lin Muyu's attainments in the Law of Ice had greatly increased. Every strike was forceful and powerful, and it was clearly not something that Gao Lian could withstand. Her battle boots kicked Gao Lian's neck without any hesitation. The strength of this kick was so great that Gao Lian's body was about to fly off the back of the giant dragon. However, the Dragon Imperial Battle Spiral forcefully pulled him back, and he tumbled along with the giant dragon, cutting a sorry figure. Woo! The giant dragon let out a sorrowful cry. Its master was injured and it was affected as well. Gao Lian spat out a mouthful of blood, and his neck and shoulders were almost covered in frost. He had lost and he could no longer fight for a short period of time. His face was flushed red, and no matter what, he never expected this result. Lin Muyu's strength had already shocked him, but what truly made Gao Lian feel defeated was still Lin Muyu's fierce attack method and speed. That was a strength that far surpassed the strength that a martial venerable should have. Vice Captain I? Gao Lian held onto the giant dragon in shame, and barely managed to not fall. Use the Law of Fire to dispel the frost. Han Shu looked at him coldly and said, "This battle is not your fault. It is the opponent who is too strong." Yes, Vice Captain. Han Shu steered the giant dragon forward and smiled. The purpose of this spar is to make friends through martial arts. Thank you, His Highness King Qin, for your teachings to my subordinate. However, seeing that your Highness's cultivation is so impressive, Han Shu really can't hold it in anymore. Why don't your Highness give me some guidance as well? The aura in Lin Muyu's body was slowly flowing back, and she said with a smile, "Lord Han Shu, you must be joking. You're a martial king and I'm a martial venerable. The difference is so great and I'm no match for you." Han Shu laughed out loud. "Your Highness, you're too polite. Since that's the case, why don't we invite His Highness King Qin, His Highness King Xin and Princess Shi to attack together? How about 3 against 1? 3 against 1? Feng Jixing was stunned. This Han Shu was too arrogant. However, he did indeed have the right to be so arrogant. After all, Han Shu was a super expert who was about to step into the ranks of divine emperors. Once he broke through to the 60th level of heaven, he would be a true divine emperor. Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes narrowed and she did not say a word. Lin Muyu also fell silent. Han Shu could not help but laugh out loud. It can't be, right? With such a vast territory, could it be that the 3 strongest people in the Shattered Cauldron realm do not dare to join forces to fight against a mere Han Shu? Dang. Dang. Feng Jixing drew his 2 sabers and had already made up his mind. You Princess Shi, don't let the deputy commander of the Blackstone Empire's Dragon Knight troop look down on the Shattered Cauldron realm. Since he wants to fight 1 against 3, then let's do it. Lin Muyu smiled. Alright. Tang Xiaoxi did not use the nation-suppressing whip. Instead, she lowered her hands gently, and streams of intense flames covered her entire body. Her 9-tailed demon fox transformation was about to appear. Everyone make way. Han Shu smiled and said to his 2 subordinates, don't be affected by my shattering powers. Gao Lian and the other Dragon Knight naturally knew how powerful Han Shu was. As long as Han Shu went all out, it was rare for him to meet a match. Although the 3 people in front of them could summon the wind and summon the rain in the Shattered Cauldron realm, they would most likely be defeated if they really went against Han Shu. The air seemed to be filled with suffocating air currents. Perhaps because the air currents were no longer flowing, the entire space seemed to have become a prison. That was a domain that was stronger than any of Lin, Feng, or Tang's domains. Han Shu cupped his fists, rode on the giant dragon and said with a smile, Han Shu, a cultivator at the 57th level of the Grotto Heaven realm. My ultimate technique is called Heaven Shattering Fist, and it uses the power of spatial laws. Please enlighten me. Feng Jixing let out a low yell and took the lead to attack. The Scarlet Phoenix and Azure Dragon created 2 storms and pounced towards their opponents. Puh. When Han Shu raised his fist, the space in front of him froze. With a loud bang, countless cracks appeared in the plane in front of him, as if glass was about to shatter. Feng Jixing's saber force was instantly dispersed. Even the space was destroyed, so what could the power of the wind attribute do? What a terrifying spatial destructive power. Feng Jixing's body spun, and his face was filled with shock. Let's attack together. Lin Muyu didn't care if it was embarrassing or not. She rushed out like lightning, and her sharp sword turned into a golden light, instantly launching a concentrated sword slash at Han Shu's left side. However, Han Shu also responded with heavy punches, and every punch carried the power to destroy the space, completely sealing off Lin Muyu's sword chi. Hula! Flames swept past and it was Tang Xiaoxi's close combat attack. Her sharp claws were enshrouded in light, and the 9-tailed demon fox's beautiful figure disappeared in a flash. The sharp claws landed on Han Shu's back, but a spatial crack also appeared there, almost perfectly blocking Tang Xiaoxi's attack. Ah! Tang Xiaoxi was sent flying by the power of space. Raising her palm, she attacked the dragon's abdomen with a divine array seal from below. Buzz buzz buzz. As if it had sensed the impending danger, the giant dragon let out a roar. Han Shu's arms shook in unison, and a thick dragon imperial battle spiral enveloped the giant dragon. With a loud bang, flames soared into the sky, and Tang Xiaoxi's divine engraving seal was naturally ineffective. Whoosh! Feng Jixing got close and slashed. The Crimson Phoenix was extremely fast, and struck the divine wall in front of Han Shu's chest with lightning. This time Han Shu's reaction couldn't keep up. He didn't expect Lin, Feng and Tang San to attack so fast. This strength was not like a Saint Martial Venerable, but a group of monsters from another plane. Rip. Lin Muyu's attack landed on the divine wall almost at the same time. Although it couldn't penetrate the divine wall, it consumed a lot of the divine power that Han Shu used to strengthen the divine wall. Get lost. In a hurry, Han Shu could only attack one person, so he chose the weaker Feng Jixing, and heavily punched Feng Jixing's chest. With a loud bang, Feng Jixing flew back 100 meters, his face ashen. The fighting Vajra's protective divine power couldn't even withstand a single punch from Han Shu. Now is the time. Feng Jixing said sadly. In just half a second, when Han Shu raised his head again, he saw a long sword surrounded by pure divine power of the law of fire. It was Lin Muyu's dragon flame spiral break. The divine wall was broken in one blow, but the power of the spiral break was also exhausted. You're dreaming. Han Shu roared. Under the impact of the air wave, Lin Muyu's body seemed to be imprisoned. In the next second, Han Shu's iron fist landed on her abdomen, consecutively breaking the dragon blood battle shield and the wall of the gourd, causing Lin Muyu to vomit blood instantly. However, a golden vine wrapped around her arm, tightly wrapping around Han Shu's neck. Like a rubber band, Lin Muyu was pulled back in less than 2 seconds after being blasted away. A black arrow appeared in her hand out of nowhere, and she conveniently stabbed it into Han Shu's neck. Blood splattered, and Han Shu was instantly stunned. The divine power in his body was quickly blocked and drained away. In the blink of an eye, he almost lost all his strength. Demon Heart Arrow. Ew. Han Shu stared at Lin Muyu, dumbfounded. Chapter 808. Yes, it's indeed the demonic heart arrow. Lin Muyu wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said, "It's a treasure found by the merchants of your country. Lord Han Shu, now that your divine power has temporarily disappeared, do you still want to continue fighting?" Han Shu's face was pale. Continuing to fight at this time was simply courting death. Han Shu's divine power had been sealed by the demonic heart arrow, and he could only have the cultivation of the divine sky realm at most. As for the other 2 dragon knights, one was injured and the other was frightened. They were definitely no match for the 3 people in front of them. The Qin Empire is indeed full of talents. After Han Shu sat on the dragon's neck, he cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for your teachings, your highnesses and Princess Shi. Han Shu will go back and report to His Majesty now. The diplomatic relations between the Blackstone Empire and your country will certainly last for a long time. After the Honorable Shang League is concluded, the major merchant guilds of the Blackstone Empire will send merchant ships. Thank you very much." He was obviously much more polite than before. Lin Muyu didn't want to kill Han Shu. Killing him was a small matter, but attracting the 2 martial god-level experts of the Blackstone Empire would be a big problem. Moreover, this battle was just to make a show of force, so there was no need to kill them all. The Qin Empire needed time to prepare their forces. Then thank you, Lord Han Shu. Lin Muyu looked at the dozen or so merchant ships on the surface of the sea and said, "I will personally escort these merchant ships into Blue Wind Harbor. After they have unloaded their cargo and replenished their food and water supplies, they will return the same way." "Then, what about our cloud brocade?" Gao Lian couldn't help but ask. Lin Muyu smiled. "We naturally have cloud brocade, but it's very expensive, so we can only give you half a ship's worth of cloud brocade and silk." What? Gao Lian was a little angry. Is cloud brocade more expensive than gold and silver? We have more than a dozen ships with very deep drafts, which are genuine platinum and silver. Gao Lian. Han Shu suddenly scolded, "Don't be rude to His Highness. Since His Highness said so, he must have good intentions. Half a ship's worth of cloud brocade is fine." But Gao Lian wanted to say something but hesitated. He was stopped by Han Shu's fierce gaze. "Then we won't see you off," Lin Muyu said respectfully. "Goodbye." Han Shu cupped his fists and urged the dragon to fly back. A few minutes later, the dragon had already flown far away. Gao Lian's face was pale as he said, "Vice Captain, we've lost these gold and silver ships just like that. How are we going to explain this to His Majesty when we return? In order to raise this amount of gold and silver, the provincial treasury has been emptied." "Cut the crap." Han Shu said coldly, "Is money more important or your life more important? I don't need to remind you about such a simple matter, right? Just now Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing could have killed us at any time, but they didn't. Don't you know when to stop?" But Gao Lian's expression was one of unwillingness as he said, "But if we lose this gold and silver, how will we explain it to His Majesty and the Marshal? Just say that there was a sudden storm on the sea and all the merchant ships were destroyed. But once the merchants who unloaded the goods return to their countries, this matter will definitely be exposed. Don't worry, they'll never be able to return to the Blackstone Empire." Han Shu's eyes flickered with a sharp glint. "Order the 3rd Dragon Rider Squad to wait on the islands along the way. Once these merchant ships return, kill them all without leaving a single one. All the merchant ships must sink forever in the sea." "Yes, sir." Gao Lian's expression flickered with fear and reverence. In the afternoon, the fleet stealthily entered the port and was quickly received by a group of imperial soldiers. The soldiers of the Longdan army camp personally moved the goods. Watching the chests of platinum and silver being unloaded from the ships, Lin Muyu sat down on the dock, feeling very smug. She took a bottle of wine from an attendant and took a full gulp. A rich alcoholic fragrance immediately filled her mouth. The snowflower brew was as refreshing and sweet as ever. When did you learn to drink? Feng Jixing sat down beside Lin Muyu and asked for the wine. Lin Muyu gave him the bottle and said, "Drinking can keep out the cold and strengthen your courage." Ha ha ha. Feng Jixing drank a mouthful of wine and said, "The great princess you actually wants to use wine to strengthen her courage? What a joke. I'll be the first to not believe it. Otherwise." Lin Muyu gazed into the distance and said, "A single vice-commander of the Blackstone Empire's Dragon Rider squad is enough to make the three of us feel like we can't handle it. Once their army arrives, I'm afraid we'll have to use wine to strengthen our courage and fight bravely." Feng Jixing nodded in tacit agreement with Lin Muyu's words. He thought for a moment and said, What do you think our chances of victory are?" 30%, Lin Muyu muttered. "If the magic crystal cannons can cause large-scale destruction, maybe 40%. However, this is based on the premise that the three empires of the celestial pole continent are at war with each other. Otherwise, fame and fortune will leave us like fleeting clouds." Feng Jixing said, "The eastern capital can be considered settled. I'll be going to Skyspan province in a few days. Do you have anything to say to me?" "Yes, you must take care." "That's nonsense." "Ha." At this moment, Tang Xiaoxi landed lightly on the ground and fished out a light golden gourd from her spatial pouch. She handed it to Lin Muyu and said, "Here, this is a gift from Sister Chu Yao." "A gift?" Lin Muyu shook the gourd. There was liquid inside, and after she pulled out the stopper, a strong aroma of wine wafted over. This was flowery wine, which had been brewed for at least 100 years. Tang Xiaoxi explained with a smile, "This kind of gourd is only grown in the entire Lanyan city by the Department of Spiritual Medicine. It's called glass gourd, and won't wither even in winter. It matures once every 50 years. The surface of the gourd is as hard as iron and can resist flames and sabers. It's an excellent raw material for wine gourd and was originally used to hold medicinal wine. Sister Chu Yao knows that you like the taste of flowery wine, so she packed some and asked me to give it to you." "Sister Chu Yao is so considerate." Lin Muyu sighed in admiration and tied the gourd to her waist, but she laughed at herself inwardly. Fortunately, she wasn't very used to fighting with the pear blossom spear. Otherwise, she would be like a reincarnated Lin Chong if she used the gourd on the pear blossom spear. Feng Jixing looked into the distance and said, "I really don't understand what the Blackstone Empire is planning." "They're just testing us." Lin Muyu said, "It's just like fighting a snake. We have to test the waters time and time again before finally delivering the fatal blow. I think this time Han Shu has figured out our strength and will soon launch an attack." Feng Jixing's eyes turned cold. What would have happened if we had been defeated? Lin Muyu smiled. "Han Shu will kill us and take our heads to claim credit. In 3 days at most, all the warships of the Blackstone Empire that are docked on the coast will rush here. Now that the east wind is blowing, their warships will arrive very soon." Feng Jixing clicked his tongue and stood up abruptly. "Brother Feng, where are you going?" "I'm mobilizing the troops of a few counties. I think a full-scale war will break out in half a month." As she spoke, Feng Jixing had already walked away. Lin Muyu untied the gourd and tied it back after drinking a mouthful of liquor. She also stood up and said, "Xiaoxi, let's go back to Winterfrost City." In the icebound pole, a barren grassland was gradually shrouded in snow and wind. This grassland was called the Green Plains, and was the warmest place in the entire icebound pole. Every year in the summer and autumn, the ice and snow on the Green Plains would melt, and the trees would sprout and bear some fruits, bringing some vitality to the land. But now the Green Plains had been occupied by a dense demon army. Countless armor demons were digging the ground in search of potatoes, bugs, rats, and hibernating snakes to fill their stomachs. But even so, they still could not fill their stomachs. Under the imperial canopy, the demon emperor Feng Yuan's aged face was full of vicissitudes. On the side, Feng Jing'er, who was already a wife, wore a gray robe and closely guarded her father. Feng Ning'er, on the other hand, wore a snow-white robe and rode a warhorse to inspect the situation of the army. Tuck, tuck, tuck. The sound of hooves approached. Was a messenger. "Reporting to your majesty, 132 armor demons have starved to death in the camp today. Marshal Qian Feng has sent a letter saying that no new living territory has been discovered." "Got it? You may leave." Feng Yuan gently waved his hand and said, "Marshal Shun, how many men and horses do we have left?" Shun Baichuan respectfully said, "Reporting to your majesty, there are 30,000 armor demons and 40,000 Zhongnan iron cavalry left." Most of the Zhongnan Iron Cavalry have followed Marshal Qianfeng to find new territory. We only have 30,000 armor demons here. Yes, got it. Feng Yuan lightly held his cane and said, "What a good Wei Chou. He forced us so badly. As long as Marshal Qianfeng finds a new territory, we will definitely make a comeback and make them pay with blood." Feng Ninger moved her red lips and wanted to say something but stopped. What's wrong? Feng Yuan glanced at her. Father, Ning-er thinks that the most important thing is to find a suitable place to live. Revenge is only secondary. We can't overturn the entire god race for revenge. Yes, father knows what you mean. I know. Feng Yuan closed his eyes. He needed to rest. However, the moment Feng Yuan closed his eyes, a tyrannical aura appeared in the sea of snow in front of him. His body trembled. What's wrong, Your Majesty? Xin Baichuan asked. A strong enemy has arrived in the north. Prepare for battle. Yes. The armor demons raised their weapons and shields. Pairs of bloody eyes stared at the snow in the north. There, groups of giant beasts with scorching auras were descending. Roar, roar, roar. Following the roars and the flapping of giant wings, black figures emerged from the curtain of snow one after another. They were actually dragon riders. Their entire bodies were wrapped in leather robes and armor, but strands of cold light seeped out from within their helmets. Their ice-cold dragon spears were pointed straight at the demon camp. Below the dragon riders was a group of beast cavalry shrouded in the heat of dragon flames. The mounts looked like fierce tigers, but they weren't. The cold swords were ready to be fired. They are, Feng Yuan gritted his teeth and said with a trembling body, could it be that the heavens want to destroy our god race? As the war drums sounded, the armor demons rushed toward their opponents in a dense mass. In the sky, the giant dragons flapped their giant wings and opened their mouths to spit dragon flames on the ground. The crowd of armor demons turned into a sea of fire. The power of the god-state warriors crisscrossed in the sky. The cold wind and snow intertwined, playing a sad song of destruction. The demon race was finished. Chapter 809. Snowflakes drifted between the sky and the earth. The snowfield stretched as far as the eyes could see. The cold wind was blowing, making the war horses snort. A group of fatigued cavalrymen unloaded their armors and hung them on the sides of their horses. Even the demon battle flags had been crooked. They zigzagged on the snowfield and tried their best to avoid ice caves and icebergs. Otherwise, the horses would not be able to pass through. Qianfeng appeared to be especially cold as he tightened the fox-skin scarf around his neck with a thick layer of frost on his dashing eyebrows. Frowning, he seemed to have smelled something. At the same time, he quivered all over and stopped where he was. Marshal, what's wrong? A deputy general asked. There seems to be a smell of blood. Qianfeng replied with a tight frown. Smell of blood? How far is His Majesty's encampment from us? 5 miles at most. Qianfeng became a bit restless as he abruptly whipped his warhorse and shouted, Cavalrymen in the vanguard, follow me at full speed. Hurry up, everybody, drop your armors and march at full speed. The group of high-level demon cavalrymen became dumbfounded. Closely after that, they whipped their horses and followed Qianfeng. The hooves of the horses clattered against the layer of ice, creating a creaking sound. With over 1,000 cavalrymen marching together, it was as if there was an earthquake. Even the layer of ice began to crack as if it would collapse at any moment. The smell of blood grew increasingly intense. When Qianfeng set foot on a piece of unfrozen wasteland, he saw an unforgettable scene. The boundless wasteland was covered with corpses of demons, armored demons, winged demons and senior demons. Broken limbs were everywhere. Demon battle flags were crooked and broken. Many armored demons' corpses were still burning. The smell of burnt flesh mixed with the smell of blood was very unbearable. Your Majesty. Jinger. Qianfeng slid off the horse absent-mindedly as he staggered forward. His battle boots stepped into a puddle full of blood, splashing blood all over his body. Behind him, the cavalrymen were all shocked. Looking at the purgatory-like encampment, they were scared out of their wits. This was a nightmarish day for the demon race. It was even more miserable than the fiasco in the 8 wastelands. On this day, the demon race lost their last hope and became a masterless soul on the continent. Marshal Qianfeng. The deputy general said with a gloomy face. It seemed that Qianfeng had not heard that. Leaning on his long sword, he walked towards the distance step by step. Over there, numerous armored demons' corpses were piled up like mountains. In the center of the corpses were a group of high-level demon guards with long swords. They were lying on the ground in disorder. Some of them had their hearts pierced through while some had their heads chopped off. They all looked extremely miserable. Jianghu, Qian Feng trod on the blood while his blood-stained cloak was fluttering in the cold wind. He looked pretty embarrassed. There were many corpses of high-level demon guards around him. They were killed for protecting their masters. Armor demons in the periphery were killed for protecting versatile emperor. Right in the center of the battlefield, some headless corpses were lying there quietly. Why did this happen? Qian Feng sat in the blood with gloomy eyes. He held the cold hand of a corpse beside him. The strong wind messed up his long hair. He murmured, "Why? What did Jing'er and Ning'er do? Why did this happen?" He suddenly smiled, and his smile was extremely ferocious. He laughed for a long time. He laughed crazily until tears flowed down his cheeks. "Marshal." In the air, a winged person shouted, "People are coming from the west. It seems to be a group of people riding dragons. They have launched an attack on us. What should we do?" Qian Feng held the headless corpse of Feng Jing'er and said lightly, "Bury the bodies of His Majesty and the two princes. Leave the 2nd Battalion to resist the enemy. The rest of you retreat with me. We have no food and weapons. We are no match for them." "Who are they?" the deputy general asked. "That is the emblem of the Tianji Empire." Qian Feng looked into the distance and said, "Retreat." The deputy general panicked. "Marshal, we have nowhere to retreat. Where can we go?" 8 wastelands. Let's return to the continent. 2 days later in the eastern capital Winterfrost City. Although it was already spring, the walls of Winterfrost City were still covered in a thick layer of frost as if it was winter. The soldiers on the walls were breathing into their palms to keep warm. In the distance, on the frozen road, 2 figures on horseback were approaching, carrying a golden flag on their shoulders. It didn't look like a war flag but more like some kind of envoy scepter. "Stop or we will shoot." The general in charge of guarding was Jianghu. He stepped on the battlement with his saber in hand. He shouted, "Who are you? How dare you come to the eastern capital without permission? You don't look like people from the Shattered Cauldron world." One of the skinny men smiled. "That's right. We are envoys sent by Lord Fang Lan, commander of the Tianji Empire's Longji Corps. We are here to give gifts to His Highness King Qin." "People from the Longji Corps?" Zhang Wei raised his eyebrows. "Isn't the Longji Corps eating meat and drinking wine in the Tianji Empire? What are you doing in the Shattered Cauldron world? Take them down." The small door opened. Dozens of Imperial soldiers rushed out and easily took down the 2 envoys. "General Zhang Wei," one of the Imperial soldiers said respectfully, "we found a few brocade boxes on their horses. Would you like to take a look?" "Open them." "Yes." When the brocade boxes were opened, Zhang Wei could not help but gasp. The arrogance and perverse look on his face were swept away. He said coldly, "Let's go. Bring them to Lingxi Palace." "Yes." The sound of horse hooves galloped in the city. Very soon they arrived at the East Palace. After several days of renovation, the palace looked brand new. Golden inscriptions were engraved on it. The 3 big words Lingxi Palace were engraved on the palace door. The name was thought up by Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing together. As for why they named it that way, the 2 of them were not clear. It was probably because of Tang Xiaoxi. A morning meeting was going on in Lingxi Palace. As the commanders of the various corps and the officials of the 3rd, 4th, and 6th divisions were staying in Lingxi Palace, the morning meeting was held very early. A huge sand table was placed in the center of the palace. It was filled with blue chips that represented the military strength of the various corps. However, there were no red chips because no one knew where the military strength of the Celestial Pole continent was. "Your Highness." Zhang Wei's voice came from outside. "Something bad has happened." "Zhang Wei, what's the matter? Why are you so flustered?" Feng Jixing raised his eyebrows and asked. Zhang Wei strode into the palace on the red carpet and said, "2 envoys who claim to be from the Tianji Empire's Longji Corps have arrived outside the city. They have brought gifts to offer to your Highness you." "This gift? What's the matter? Why are you stuttering?" Lin Muyu said, "Just what kind of gift is it? Bring it here." "Yes." Zhang Wei waved his hand. 3 imperial guards carried the brocade box into the palace and placed the gift on the king's steps. "Why are you being so mysterious? Open it," Tang Xiaoxi said. "Yes." The imperial guards opened the brocade box. Immediately Tang Xiaoxi, Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, Qin Yan and the others were stunned. There were 3 heads in the brocade box. The heads of Feng Yuan, Feng Jing'er, and Feng Ning'er. Tang Xiaoxi staggered and fell to the ground. Her mind was blank. She muttered, how could it be like this? Her Highness Ning, who killed Her Highness Ning, so cruelly? She burst into tears. She had been trapped in the sky-reaching gorge of the Devil Clan for so long, but it was Feng Ninger who had accompanied her all the time. Who on earth killed such a gentle and graceful girl so cruelly? Her Highness Ning. Lin Muyu's heart was filled with bitterness. Feng Ninger's voice and smile were still vivid in his mind. He took a step forward and knelt on one knee in front of Feng Ninger's head. His voice trembled slightly as he said in a low voice, "Rest in peace, Ningyu. Are you all right?" Feng Jixing looked at Lin Muyu worriedly, then looked at Tang Xiaoxi. He knew that when they were in Lanyan City, Feng Ning had expressed her admiration for Lin Muyu. This kind of feeling was indescribable. Although they were not fated to be together, Lin Muyu definitely did not feel good seeing her being killed so cruelly. Reaching out to close the brocade box, Lin Muyu could not bear to look anymore. He hugged Tang Xiaoxi's shoulder and helped her up. He said in a cold voice, "Zhang Wei, bring the two envoys in." Yes. The two envoys walked in slowly with arrogant expressions. The skinny one did not bow. He raised his head and looked at Lin Muyu. Looking at the rusted gold cloak behind him, he said, "You are Her Highness King Qin Lin Muyu?" "That's me." Lin Muyu's gaze was calm. He said, "When did the Longji Corps come to the Shattered Cauldron world?" The envoy laughed. "When your highness was in a deep sleep." Feng Jixing narrowed his eyes. "There's no need to think about it. You guys actually went to the Devil Race's territory first. The Longji Corps must have come from the land bridge in the extreme north. But what I find strange is, how did you guys manage to cross the land bridge in the wind and snow that mortals can't endure? Even a sacred region expert would be frozen to death on the land bridge, let alone you guys." The envoy cupped his fists and smiled. "You must be Her Highness King Xian Feng Jixing. It's actually very simple. The dragon race is the race closest to God. The dragon race can use dragon flames and dragon imperial battle spin to help our soldiers survive the harsh cold. Right now, the 400,000 soldiers from the Longji Corps and the Luji Corps have gathered in the desert north. I heard that your country has been at war with the devil race for many years. Our commander, Lord Fang Lan, gave the order to wipe out the devil race to avenge your highness' humiliation. I've received orders to send the heads of the devil race's king and the two princesses as gifts. Your highness, please accept them. Before long, our Qinji Empire's Honorable Shang League will be stationed at your country's port. I hope that we can trade with each other and prosper together." "So I should be thanking you guys?" Lin Muyu smiled coldly. "There's no need to thank me." The envoy smiled and said, "As long as your highness King Qin is happy." "No, there's one more thing that can make me even happier." The king of Qin suddenly raised his hand, and a flash of sword light flashed 10 meters away. The envoy was suddenly speechless. His head rolled down from his neck and his body fell to the ground with a loud crash. Blood splattered on the envoy beside him. "Someone bring a brocade box and put his head in it. Let another envoy bring his head back to report the completion of the mission. Just say that this is my Lin Muyu's gift of thanks. I hope that Commander Fang Lan will accept it." Lin Muyu's voice was cold and brooked no objection. "Finally they still declared war," Feng Jixing muttered to himself for a while and said with a smile, "although it's only a matter of time." Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. She finally understood the meaning of the poem that the second prince of the Celestial Empire, Qinyu, had given to her. The mountain is high and the river is long and the journey is long. The light snow has just stopped, and it is raining continuously. Warm wine and chat in the pavilion. Who cares about the endless snow elsewhere? In fact, Qinyu had long known that the Qinji Empire had sent elite troops across the northern polar land bridge to launch a sneak attack. But why didn't he tell her about it clearly? It was probably because Qinyu didn't want the Qinji Empire to win, and he didn't want the Shattered Cauldron realm to win either. What he wanted to see the most was a lose-lose situation. When she thought of this, she felt an indescribable chill in her heart. No matter how sinister the world was, it couldn't be more sinister than the human heart. Chapter 8:10. Thank you, Your Highness, for sparing our lives. Another envoy trembled as he held the brocade box containing his comrade's head. He retreated and ran away as if he was afraid that Lin Muyu would suddenly change her mind and order him to be killed. Fang Lan of the Longji Corps only wanted to use the head of the demon race's leader to demonstrate his power, but he didn't expect that Lin Muyu wouldn't be threatened at all. The entire Lingxi palace was silent. No one spoke, only the sound of the guards dragging the corpses away could be heard. Lin Muyu placed her hand on Tang Xiaoxi's shoulder and ordered, "Men, bring the corpses of Feng Yuan, Feng Jing'er and Feng Ning-er down and bury them outside the city. Follow the etiquette of an emperor and bury them together with the dukes and nobles of Winterfrost City in the royal mausoleum." "Yes, Your Highness." The officials were silent. Only one person raised his head. It was Zheng Yifan. He said respectfully, "Your Highness' actions just now were inappropriate. We shouldn't have killed the envoy of the Longji Corps. I'm afraid that the Longji Corps will soon march south." "I know." Lin Muyu nodded. "Duke Fan's teachings are correct. But I really couldn't hold back just now, so I killed that despicable and arrogant person. Now that I've made a huge mistake, I can only take one step at a time." "What does Your Highness plan to do?" Xiang Yu asked. "Our deployment has been broken." Lin Muyu walked down the steps and pressed the position of the Tong Tian Gorge on the sand table. "Maybe this is the first place to be attacked, not the east coast." Xiang Yu was shocked. "Then, we must immediately redeploy or else it will be too late." "No, it will be too late." Lin Muyu asked, "Duke Wei, how many troops do we have on the Tong Tian Gorge and the 8 wastelands?" 50,000, a total of 100,000. Wei Chou said concisely. 100,000. Zheng Yifan frowned. The demon race still has tens of thousands of armor demons and steel cavalry, but they still failed at the last step. I'm afraid that the 100,000 soldiers of the Empire may not be able to stop the 400,000 soldiers of the Tianji Empire, right? That's true, Lin Muyu said. The Steel Blade Army is willing to head to the 8 wastelands to defend against the enemy. Luo Xang cupped his fists and said, "No need." What? Just now, the envoy also said that there are 400,000 soldiers of the Tianji Empire. What he said might not be true. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, "I've been to the icebound pole once and it's indeed very cold. Mortals can't withstand that kind of temperature at all. The Continental Bridge is actually the continental shelf that connects the 2 continents. Although it's flat ground, the temperature is too low and there's no food there. There are glaciers everywhere and chariots can't pass through at all. Let me ask you, how could the 400,000 troops of the Tianji Empire cross the Continental Bridge? The Tianji Dragon Riders only have around 210 people, and they still need to leave some Dragon Knights behind to guard the border. That's why there are no more than 100 Dragon Knights here. 100 Dragon Knights are not enough to provide protection for an army of 400,000. He frowned and said, "According to my estimation, the Longji army will at most have 20 to 30,000 people. It is impossible to have more, but there might be more than 100 Dragon Knights. It is more troublesome." Zheng Yifan said, "Then how are we going to defend now? Will they attack the Empire's garrison in 8 wastelands?" "They will, and they definitely will. But the main force of the Tianji Empire will definitely come from the sea, this is certain." Lin Muyu stretched her arms and said, "This is just my personal guess. If anyone has any opinions, you can say it." Xiang Yu said, "The most important thing now is to inform the Empire's garrison in 8 wastelands to strengthen their defenses, to prevent the Longji army from sneaking in attack." "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded. "Wei Chou, send someone to send 10 letters immediately just in case there are any mistakes along the way." "Yes." Other than that, Lin Muyu muttered, "Pick 10,000 elite cavalry from the Longdan army camp, bring magic crystal crossbows, and set off as fast as possible to reinforce 8 wastelands. I will go personally." "What?" Zheng Yifan was stunned. "Your Highness, you are the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies, you can't go personally." "It's all right, Master Fan." Zheng Yifan frowned, but Zhen Fang smiled at the side. "Father, it's all right, Your Highness, you is skilled and bold, and the Tianji Empire has sent out the Dragon Riders. I'm afraid that only Your Highness you can go to 8 wastelands personally to control the situation." "Yes, that's the only way." Zheng Yifan cupped his fists. "Your Highness, you please be careful." "Don't worry." Lin Muyu glanced at Tang Xiaoxi, Feng Jixing, Qin Yan and the others and said, "I will go to 8 wastelands. Xiao Shi and Brother Feng stay behind to preside over His Highness Feng Ning'er's funeral. You must not be lacking in etiquette." Feng Jixing frowned. You are in a hurry to go to 8 wastelands. I'm afraid it's not as simple as defending the northern territory, right? As expected, nothing can be hidden from Brother Feng." Lin Muyu lowered her voice and said, "There are 3 people in the demon race that we are most afraid of, Feng Yuan, the Saint Master and Chen Feng, but they only sent us Feng Yuan's head. What does this mean?" Feng Jixing's body trembled. "It means that Chen Feng is still alive?" "That's right, if Chen Feng is still alive then I must go to the north." Mu, what do you want to do? Tang Xiaoxi asked worriedly. Fight for all possible friends. You want to rope in Qianfeng? That's right. Qianfeng is a great general talent. The Tianji Empire destroyed his country. This is a great opportunity for us to fight for Qianfeng. If Qianfeng is willing to pledge loyalty to the Qin Empire, then it's like adding wings to a tiger. You're right. Tang Xiaoxi said, then I'll go with you, at least we can look after each other. Anyway, the eastern capital doesn't need me. You, Lin Muyu, had no choice but to nod, but when we arrive at 8 Wastelands, you have to listen to everything I say. I know. Tang Xiaoxi showed a trace of a smile. After the morning meeting ended, the officials dispersed. Everyone was anxious and many officials were whispering. When the 2 envoys from the Tianji Empire arrived in the morning, it was tantamount to the 2 countries tearing off all pretenses, and an all-out war was about to break out. The rare few years of peace in the empire had passed, and in the blink of an eye, an unprecedented storm was about to come. Outside the city, the sound of horse hooves could be heard. 10,000 elite cavalrymen of the valiant Dragon Legion went into battle with light gear. They took off their armors and only carried swords and magic crystal crossbows. They even only brought a day's worth of dry rations. Along the way they passed through the provinces of the empire, so it was not a problem to replenish their rations. Lin Muyu took off the Wangju cloak and changed into a white imperial robe armor, looking as handsome as before. Riding Snow Walker, she accompanied Tang Xiaoxi and left the eastern capital with the cavalry. Wei Chou and Bai Yin followed closely behind. On the city wall, Situ Sen and Situ Shui watched as the crowd left. Only the 2 of us are left again. Situ Sen said angrily, good things always happen first for Wei Chou. It's so infuriating. Situ Shui giggled, it's not necessarily a good thing to go against the dragon riders. Don't you think so, Ouyang Yen? Ouyang Yen, on the other hand, looked into the distance absent-mindedly. After a long time she murmured, Tang Xiaoxi's crimson brocade dress is so beautiful. Situ Shui, woo, the flames in the illusion soared into the sky, burning every inch of the girl's skin and soul. She curled up in a corner and wailed in a low voice, enduring the pain that ordinary people could not bear. This was the 3rd day since Xin entered the Lost Paradise, and it was also the last day. The entire ice crystal looked like it was about to melt, and the hall was also brightly lit. Claude's body was enshrouded in holy light, and he looked at Xin in the Lost Paradise with a stern gaze. A cast immortal godhead slowly flew out of his Wuxia and floated in the air, emitting divine power as it poured the soul-forging profound energy into the Lost Paradise. As the ruler of a region, the supreme god of the Western divine realm, Claude had always been ashamed of the grade of his godhead. He could not bear the fact that the dignified ruler only had a mere cast immortal godhead. So when he saw Xin's overgod godhead almost breaking out of its cocoon in the Lost Paradise, his eyes flashed with greed. Lord Ruler. Behind him, Shi Yen knelt on one knee, and her voice woke Claude up, pulling him back from his greed. Oh, it's Shi Yen, what is it? Claude asked calmly. It's already the 2nd day, the ruler must have used up a lot of his divine power. Shi Yen looked up at him and said, please rest, ruler. Shi Yen will help you look after the Lost Paradise. As she spoke, she glanced at Xin in the Lost Paradise and said, if you continue, I'm afraid Xin won't be able to hold on much longer. She'll turn to ashes. Claude smiled. If she can't even withstand this level of test, then she doesn't have the right to be the golden-winged battle angel of the Western divine realm. Alright, I'm going to rest for a while. You watch over her. Yes. Shi Yen. Lord Ruler, what is it? Don't be biased. No one can save Xin, only she can save herself. Do you understand? Yes, your subordinate understands. Then I'll go. I'll be back in 2 hours. Yes. As soon as Claude left, Shi Yen floated over to the Lost Paradise. Looking at Xin, who was about to turn into a soul, she couldn't help but feel heartache. Poor girl. She murmured, did fate torture you so much just to give you a new life? But Xin couldn't sense Shi Yan's words. Her sea of consciousness was becoming blurry, and all of her memories were about to disappear into the Lost Paradise. If a person lives without emotions, then they aren't fit to be human, and they aren't fit to be a god. Shi Yen murmured in a low voice. Suddenly, some powder flickered in her hand and fluttered into the Lost Paradise like willow catkins. The powder passed through countless boundaries and finally seeped into Shi Yen's body, making her no longer so painful and becoming peaceful. Shi Yen. A voice came from behind. It was Eva. Shi Yen was startled. She didn't turn around, but her face was deathly pale. "Don't worry. I won't tell the ruler." Laowa stood side by side with her and smiled. "Is that the powder of the red spider lilies?" "Yes. For Sheen, you've really gone to great lengths." Chapter 8:11. The fire grew fiercer and fiercer, and the entire lost paradise had become a sea of crimson flames. Sheen's body had disappeared, and only a few rays of light could be seen floating above the lost paradise. That was the power of her soul. Her soul form was already being reconstructed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Outside the hall, radiant angels, strength angels, and energy angels spread their wings and landed. They could feel that Claude's aura was becoming chaotic and violent, so they released their divine power and slowly gathered it into Claude's body. Claude immediately calmed down and his aura became calm. The crystal in his palm slowly trembled, and the edge of the lost paradise was showing signs of cracking. However, he did not stop, continuing the final process of forging his soul. Shi Yan stood behind Claude, not saying a word, her beautiful face full of worry. Outside, the night was deep and the moon was getting higher and higher. It was almost midnight. However, what made Shi Yan's heart ache was that the lost paradise had also calmed down, and Sheen, who had entered the lost paradise, was completely silent. She seemed to have stopped resisting. "What's going on?" she muttered. Eva gritted her teeth. "Sheen, she can't be unable to bear the power of the ruler and have turned into ashes, can she?" The flames in the lost paradise burned fiercely, but they were extinguishing. The final process was finally over. Claude didn't say a word and looked at the lost paradise coldly. To his despair, he discovered that the lost paradise's spiritual power had been depleted. It was no longer a divine weapon and had been reduced to a mortal-grade ice crystal. Sheen? In the distance, the other 9 participants were also waiting for Sheen to break out of the cocoon. Terralyn looked worried. She could also feel that Sheen's aura had almost completely disappeared. She's still trash in the end. She can't bear the hope of the divine realm at all, Dora sneered. Terralyn glanced at Dora with hatred. She really did not want to accept this reality. Lake said in a low voice, "It can't be. It can't be. How could Sheen die just like that? It can't be." At that moment, Claude let out a low growl. With a flip of his hand, he flipped the lost paradise upside down, causing it to fall to the center of the hall like a small mountain. Boom. Flames soared into the sky, filling the entire lost paradise with flames. However, under the control of the sovereign's power, the flames were quickly extinguished. Amidst the thick smoke, it was a mess. The lost paradise was filled with burn marks. Sheen, Terralyn was stunned. "She's not dead." Shi Yan's eyes lit up and she couldn't help but cry out in surprise. The dignified blazing angel was so agitated that Li Fei, Kulun, the other instructors, and the group of radiant angel were somewhat dumbfounded. After all, Shi Yan was a famous ice beauty in the Western divine realm. She didn't show her emotions on her face, but now, it was clear that the layer of frost on her face was gradually fading away. Amidst the ashes of the lost paradise, the young girl sat there like a jade statue hugging her knees. Her face was almost completely buried in her arms, making it impossible for anyone to see her clearly. Shi Yan's clothes had been completely burned away, her fair and flawless body was hidden in the ashes, giving off a sense of beauty as if she had just survived a calamity. Shi Yan was already prepared. She flew over and wrapped a white cloak around Sheen's body. She said softly, "Sheen, are you all right?" Sheen didn't speak, but her body was trembling slightly. She raised her head, and her exquisite face was as beautiful as if it had absorbed the spirit of heaven and earth. However, her eyes were closed, and the long eyelashes at the corner of her eyes were surrounded by a faint golden flame. She was trying hard to open her eyes, and her eyelashes were trembling slightly, as if she was in great pain and difficulty. "Something's wrong." Claude, whose whole body was shrouded in a dark light, narrowed his eyes and said, "Shi Yan, be careful." Shi Yan was startled. At this moment, Sheen's eyes finally opened, and a golden flame seemed to devour everything from her eyes. The moment they met her eyes, the radiant angel, the energy angel, and the group of contestants felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave. What kind of eyes were those? People didn't want to see them, and even the gods had to retreat. Under Sheen's eyes, people felt that there was nowhere to hide. At the same time, a wave of golden flame quickly swept out with Sheen as the center. Boom. Shi Yan cried out in pain and she used her arms to block her chest. 6 wings spread out behind her. She even had to enter her angel form to resist the impact of Sheen's eyes. It was a kind of penetrating power that was a mixture of the law of light and the law of fire. It was very shocking. Sheen, close your eyes. Claude suddenly opened his arms, and suddenly a wall of light appeared, enveloping the impact caused by Sheen in the wall of light. There was an endless, ping 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 sound, and Claude's expression became slightly ugly. She closed her eyes, and the moment she closed her eyes, the soul-stirring force field disappeared. Everyone sighed, feeling as if they had just survived a disaster. How could this be? Shi Yan stood a few meters away from Sheen in a daze, almost unable to recognize her. It's the blazing eyes, Eva said calmly. Claude nodded. Yes, the blazing eyes have reappeared in the heavenly realm. What's the blazing eyes? The person who asked was Li Fei, the vice dean of the training field. She had 96 grotto heavens, but she didn't even know about the legend of the blazing eyes. Claude waved his hand and said, "Don't ask. No one is allowed to spread the news about the blazing eyes, or they will be punished by the Western Divine Realm." Everyone bowed their heads. "Yes, Master." Shi Yan murmured, "What now?" "According to the original plan, we'll carry out the banishment tomorrow." Claude's voice sounded like it came from an ice cave. He felt a chill in his heart. He had originally planned to use the Lost Paradise to train Sheen's soul and refine her over-god personality. However, Claude didn't expect her to be so strong-willed. Not only did she endure the destructive flames of the Lost Paradise, but she also benefited from the disaster and awakened the blazing eyes. The blazing eyes were only a legend in the immortal realm. However, Claude knew that the last person who possessed the blazing eyes became the master of the heavenly realm. What would the Sheen in front of him be? Fortunately, Claude was relieved that the soul training was a success. Sheen was obedient to him. Even if she had the potential to become the master of the heavenly realm, she was still his dog. Thinking of this, Claude felt a little proud. He said calmly, "Shi Yan, bring Sheen to rest. Remember, unless absolutely necessary, do not open the blazing eyes. Do you understand?" With Shi Yan's support, Sheen bowed and said, "Yes, Master." "All right, go." Claude looked at the crowd again and said, "All of you are dismissed. All participants will come to the hall tomorrow morning to accept the next mission. Duola, stay here. I have arrangements." "Yes." The crowd left the hall and turned into streaks of light, flying towards the various spirit mountains in the distance. Duola was dressed in tight-fitting clothes. He stood quietly in the hall and said respectfully, "Master, I'm here." Claude looked at Duola and activated his divine strategy ability. He could see through everything about Duola. Duola was different from Sheen. What she wanted was very clear: power and status. However, Claude could not see through Sheen. There were always some people in the world that divine strategies could not see through. Claude knew what they were. "Duola, do you want to become a four-winged radiant angel or even a seraph?" Claude asked calmly. "Yes, it's my dream." Duola's gaze became heated. She knew what the master meant by this. However, Claude sneered. "Unfortunately, you're just a level 6 battle angel with black wings. You're just a lowly piece of trash. What right do you have to become a seraph?" Duola was startled. However, what she felt was not humiliation. Instead, she felt a kind of excitement. A kind of excitement that was almost twisted. She straightened her body, revealing her pair of peaks. She said, "Because I can complete the mission the master gave me. No matter what the master wants Duola to do, I'll do it even if I have to give up my life." "Good. You're a smart person. Come, these are the artifacts I'm giving you." A faint light condensed in the air in front of Duola to form two treasures. One was a spear that glowed faintly, and the other was a blood-red dagger. Both of these artifacts contained divine power. They were undoubtedly divine weapons from the Western Heavens realm. These are the Dig Spear and the Dagger of Time. Claude's voice seemed to come from purgatory. He said calmly, "The Dig Spear can pierce through all god walls. Even a god emperor of the 99 heavens would have to respect the Dig Spear. The Dagger of Time can reverse time. It's incomparably sharp. These two treasures are the divine artifacts I'm giving you. You need to be careful with them." Duola held the two divine artifacts. Her voice trembled with excitement. She said, "Master, please grant Duola a mission." "Hey, you're indeed very smart." Claude shrugged and said, "I'll send 10 of you to form a small team. Tomorrow you'll be expelled from the divine realm and become wandering gods of the lower realm. You'll complete the mission I'm giving you. In the process of completing the mission, if Sheen does anything disloyal to the Western divine realm, you're free to judge. But remember, don't let her open her eyes. If Sheen uses the Eyes of Blazing Dawn against you, you'll have to use the Dagger of Time to deal with it. Remember, if you want to kill Sheen, you'll have to use the Dagger of Time to blind her Eyes of Blazing Dawn. Otherwise you'll never succeed. Use the Dig Spear and the Dagger of Time well. I wish you success. Yes. But you must also remember that Sheen is the hope of the Western Divine Realm. If she remains loyal to me, you mustn't harm her. Otherwise I won't let you off. Duo La couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. She knelt down respectfully and said, Duo La will remember the Master's teachings. Don't worry, Duo La will definitely complete the mission. Good. Claude smiled faintly. You and Sheen are both candidates for the Blazing Angels. However, you still need more training. At the very least, it'll take 100 years. At the very most, it'll take 10,000 years. Go and have a good rest. Tomorrow will be the day you'll be the center of attention. Yes. Putting the Dagger of Time into the leather pouch at her waist, Duo La carried the dazzling spear and leaped out of the shrine. Like a meteor, she fell towards the training field. Only Claude was left in the empty shrine. His eyes suddenly became a little dazed. He looked at the stars in the sky and murmured, Eyes of Blazing Dawn. Eyes of Blazing Dawn. Is this my fate? Chapter 8:12. Moonlight shone on the floor tiles of the room like water. The girl sat quietly by the bed, her eyes still closed. This was Shi Yan's residence. The Blazing Angel's residence was very quiet, just like Shi Yan herself. Shi Yan sat by the round table in the room, holding the stellar sword. Her fingertips brushed across the blade, constantly sharpening it, causing sparks to fly. She was actually sharpening the sword for Sheen. The room was silent, only the sound of sharpening the sword could be heard. How do you feel? After a long time, Shi Yan suddenly asked. Lady Shi Yan, what kind of feeling are you asking about? Sheen respectfully asked. But her respect made Shi Yan feel a little unfamiliar. She frowned and said, the feeling after obtaining the Eyes of Blazing Light. I don't know. Sheen shook her head and said, this is a divine gift, but I can't use it well. The Eyes of Blazing Light is very destructive. It's better not to use it if possible. Shi Yan smiled meaningfully and said, Sheen, do you still remember who you are? I remember. I am a level 7 golden winged angel of the Western Divine Realm, one of the gods under ruler Claude. Her voice was calm, but it was not to be questioned. Shi Yan couldn't help but feel a little pain in her heart. Could it be that the powder of the red spider lily didn't leave behind any memories? That's good, it's good to forget everything. Shi Yan stood up and put down the sword, saying, only by forgetting everything can you let go. Only then will you be able to live freely. Perhaps this is the best result for you. She stood up and was about to leave when her hand was suddenly pulled. It was Sheen. Her speed was unbelievably fast, and she had silently approached Shi Yan. What is it? Shi Yan raised her eyebrows and looked at her. Thank you, Sheen said with her eyes closed. Thank you, Sister Hyan, but I can't say too much. Shi Yan was overjoyed, but she suppressed her joy and nodded, yes. Be yourself. I will send you off tomorrow. In the future, I will always bless you, Chinin. Chinin? Sheen was startled. Why did you call me that? You'll naturally understand in the future. I'm leaving now. Tomorrow morning, someone will come to pick you up and bring you to the shrine. All right. Sheen did not speak again, and neither did Shi Yan. They both knew that it was best for each other to remain silent. As Shi Yan slowly flew towards another shrine in the spirited mountain, Sheen could not see her off and could only sense her direction with her spiritual sense. Fortunately, after the torment in the Lost Paradise, not only did Sheen obtain the Eyes of Blazing Dawn, but her spiritual sense, hearing, and smell had also greatly improved. At least, it was not something that cultivators of the same level could compare to. Under the moonlight, she quietly walked back to her room and lay on the bed, burying her face in the pillow. She did not dare to open her eyes, afraid that if she opened her eyes, everything she treasured would turn into ashes. The Eyes of Blazing Dawn was a holy artifact formed from flames and light. It could destroy everything and control the universe, but it was also a curse. If she had a choice, she would definitely not want this pair of Eyes of Blazing Dawn. The next morning, the shrine was very lively. Almost all the 4 winged angels had arrived, and the 2 seraphim, Shi Yan and Eva, had also arrived. When Sheen, Terralyn, Dora, and the others arrived, Claude also appeared. Terralyn stood under a huge stone pillar, staring at the spear in Dora's hand. She could not help but exclaim, that's the spear of Diggs? How is that possible? Isn't the spear of Diggs the weapon of the ruler? How could it be in this woman's hands? Dora sneered and did not respond. Lake whispered, Terilyn, don't speak, the ruler is here. In the sky, golden clouds slowly gathered. Claude stepped on the clouds, surrounded by a group of radiant angels. He looked down at the 10 final winners of the God's chosen trial and said, You are all the pride of the western heavens, but today you must accept your destiny, exile. From today onwards you are no longer battle angels but banished angels. Lake was shocked. Exile? Zhou Shimin also looked shocked. Lord Ruler, why did you exile us? This is the destiny of your generation of battle angels. Don't ask too much. Claude said indifferently, From today onwards the 10 of you only need to listen to Sheen. She is your captain and Dora is your vice-captain. Although there are only 10 of you, you shoulder the future of the entire western heavens. Follow me, I will take you to the Star Cave, and your exile will begin there. Sheen, Dora, do you understand? Yes. The 2 girls bowed respectfully. Claude, however, spread his arms wide. Suddenly, a powerful wave of telekinesis enveloped them and penetrated Sheen and Dora's mental defenses. Immediately, the 2 of them felt as if they were under his control. A powerful wave of will was forcibly injected into their minds, as if it was an order that they couldn't defy. Within 3 years. Sheen panted heavily, her face pale. Dora continued her words and said softly, Help the celestial pole continent, destroy the shattered cauldron realm and seize the sovereign's godhead. All right, don't speak. The 10 of you follow me. With his hands behind his back, Claude proudly flew towards a spirit mountain in the distance. The Star Cave was a pitch-black and deep pit that led directly to a plain outside of the God Realm. The divine spirits of the Western God Realm who were severely punished would be thrown into the Star Cave, and the extremely strong power of the universe would send them to another realm, but it would definitely not be the God Realm. Once you enter the Star Cave, you will be involuntarily sent to another plane. Therefore, hold each other's hands until the end, understand? Yes. Terilyn quickly held onto Sheen's hand. Lake originally wanted to hold Sheen's hand, but he did not get a response, so he could only hold onto Terilyn resentfully. As for Dora, she seemed to be on good terms with the others. In the end, it was Zhou Shimin who was the link between the 2 forces in the team. Claude's gaze turned gentle. He spread his arms and said with a smile, Go, my children. I hope that you will become true experts and become the pride of the divine realm. The 10 of them leaped up together and floated in the air. Then they slowly descended into the Star Cave. Very soon, the tearing force in the Star Cave became stronger and stronger, to the point that they could no longer stand steadily and fell into the dark space together. Light flashed before their eyes. Hundreds of meters in the Star Cave was equivalent to passing through countless planes. Sheen had the highest cultivation among them, so she felt the least pulled by the Star Cave. She held onto Terilyn's hand tightly. Terilyn, on the other hand, was very flustered. She had never experienced such a space before. Sure enough, it was as if she had been banished, becoming an abandoned existence in the divine realm. Where are we going? Luo Fei, who was in the crowd with a shield on his back, asked loudly. Luo Fei was a very inconspicuous person. His results had always been outside the top 10, but in the last 2 trials, he had performed outstandingly and entered the top 10 with a light attribute defensive martial art. I don't know. Dora held her companion's hand in one hand and the Diggs spear in the other. The ruler banished us, but he didn't specify where we should go. Perhaps we have to find this place ourselves. Sheen's heart stirred and she quickly searched through the passing planes. Sure enough, there was a somewhat familiar one. She hurriedly pulled on Terilyn's hand and struggled to get closer. As a result, with Sheen's pull, everyone followed along. The gravitational force grew stronger and stronger, and soon, everyone deviated from the Star Cave's trajectory and fell straight into another plane. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, starlight flashed before them, making it almost impossible to see anything clearly. Plane cracks continued to appear, and after an unknown amount of time, their eyes suddenly lit up, and they fell uncontrollably into the dark earth. Bang bang bang, even if he was a well-known figure in the God Realm, he still fell flat on his back from the powerful impact. Sheen maintained a posture of landing on one knee. She could be considered the least battered among the group. She closed her eyes and sensed her surroundings. Not far away, a black mountain stood in the wasteland and it was very familiar. This was the Black Mountain. This was the land of exile. Sheen was overjoyed. As expected, she found it. Where is this? Another girl among the 10, Dory, asked blankly. Dory was a candidate from a mid-tier family, and ranked 10th in terms of results. She was also the one with the lowest cultivation in the group, so she chose Dora. Only by following Dora could she protect herself. I don't know. Dora's gaze was calm. But the people in this plane aren't very strong. I can sense them. Sheen smiled inwardly. Naturally, they weren't very strong. She had already taken care of the ultimate experts in this plane. Be careful. Zhou Shimin pointed to the other side of the Black Mountain. Countless auras have appeared there and some of them are rather strong. We'd better be careful. Sheen, on the other hand, leaped into the air and headed straight for the mountain top. Sheen, be careful. Lake and Terralyn shouted together. Dora frowned and said calmly, our leader is really reckless. On the plains on the other side of the Black Mountain, an army was slowly advancing. The sound of war chariots grinding against the ground was very heavy. A few leaders riding on giant wolves looked around, and the giant wolves under them opened their bloody mouths and let out low growls. Suddenly, a figure appeared on the mountain ridge, attracting everyone's attention. Who is that? A leader asked with squinted eyes. No matter who it is, the land of exile doesn't welcome any invaders. Kill her. A few leaders riding on wolves brandished their battle axes and charged up the hill. However, as they approached the other party, they were suddenly stunned. One by one they slid down from the backs of their wolves and knelt on the ground. They respectfully said, your subordinates greet the Dark Moon King. Sheen smiled in satisfaction. I'm back. Gather everyone. Yes, Dark Moon King. How impressive. Terralyn couldn't contain her joy. Sheen, is this your army? Yes, this is the land of exile, Sheen said. Dora raised his eyebrows. Leader Sheen, we don't want to go to the celestial pole continent, but you brought us to the land of exile. What is the meaning of this? The ruler doesn't seem to have this intention. Sheen said indifferently, the celestial pole continent is too far from the immortal realm. Only experts with the cultivation of God Emperor can travel to the celestial pole continent in one go. With our strength, we will only be harmed if we forcefully break through. Moreover, it is said that the Shattered Cauldron realm has a strong army. Since we want to help the celestial pole continent win this war, why don't we lead an army from the land of exile? I am the leader. I have the authority to decide. Dora couldn't refute. He clenched his teeth and didn't say anything. Terralyn looked at the sky, her eyes glowing with a faint golden light. She said, the passage from here to the Shattered Cauldron realm will connect in about 3 days. We need to wait for the Wheel of Time to rotate, so we still have 3 days. Chapter 8:13. In the afternoon, the sun shone on the deserted jungle. Under the mottled shadows of the trees, the powerhouses of the land of exile were being reviewed by the Dark Moon King. Although they had prepared very seriously, they still looked crooked and uneven. The resources in the land of exile were very scarce to begin with. Not to mention a uniform military uniform, they did not even have a weapon. As for the chariots and other things that fell from the alternate dimension, they were also pieced together and could be said to be vulnerable. Sheen wore the white robe of a battle angel and stood in front of the army like a beautiful jade sculpture. Dora sat on a crooked tree and sneered, this kind of motley crew actually looks real. If the Western Heavens realm wants to rely on this group of trash to win against the spiritual mountain army of the Eastern Heavens realm, it's simply a fool's dream. I say, Sheen, do you really plan to bring these people to the celestial pole continent? Sheen didn't reply and just continued to use his spiritual sense to sense and review the army. A commander-class combatant walked forward and respectfully knelt on the ground. Your Majesty, a few days ago, a battleship crashed into the banished lands from outer space, but their luck was very bad. They crashed into the Black Mountain and were burnt to a crisp. This subordinate has checked. Other than the metal plates, the weapons on the battleship have all been destroyed and can no longer be used. Warship. Sheen didn't seem to understand. The leader smiled and said, so the sky warship is an ultimate weapon that can fly in the sky. Except for God, the sky warship is invincible in the universe. The iron sheets you were talking about? Sheen muttered. Yes, iron sheets, some useless things, said the leader. Can these iron sheets travel through dimensions without melting? Asked Sheen. Well? The leader pondered for a moment and said, I used to be one of the executive officers on a warship. These iron sheets are made of special materials that can withstand the pressure and high temperature of hyperspace teleportation, so they must be able to withstand the baptism of the sand of time when crossing dimensions. To be honest, if it weren't for the protection of these iron sheets, I would have been burnt to a crisp after I strayed into the wormhole back then, and I would never have had the chance to serve the Queen. All right. Sheen said, collect these iron sheets and forge them into large iron boxes, big enough to hold people. What does the queen mean? Sheen smiled and explained, I want to take you guys to the celestial pole continent, so I need to make sure that you won't be corroded by the sands of time. Pass down my order to use iron sheets to build metal boxes. My army will be able to travel between planes in these boxes. Each box will contain 100 people and they will be connected in pairs. We'll set off in 3 days. Those who are unwilling to go will have to remain in the banished land. The leader was stunned. The celestial pole continent? Yes. Does your majesty understand the celestial pole continent? I don't know, but it said that the celestial pole continent is rich in resources, with countless food and beauties. Wow, go go go. We'll follow the queen. We'll have no regrets even if we die. You're really good. Hurry up and forge the boxes. Yes, we'll do our best. Under a tent made of tattered canvas, Dora, Luo Fei, Dory, and the others surrounded a bonfire, bored to death as they watched the food gradually cook over the bonfire. Fortunately, they had brought spare food in their spatial bags. Otherwise, they would have starved to death in a place like the banished land. After all, Dora, Luo Fei, and the others weren't willing to eat the food in the banished land. Sheen is gathering his army. Dora looked at the bonfire with a deep gaze and said, Don't you guys have any ideas? Dory's thoughts were simple. She said, having enough troops is a guarantee of winning a war. Isn't what Sheen is doing wrong? Besides, completing the mission and returning to the heavenly realm will be the credit of all of us. If you're really simple-minded. Dora glanced at her and said, Once Sheen holds power, can you guarantee that Sheen won't try to kill us? After all, if someone dies in the celestial pole continent, even the Lord Ruler might not be able to detect it. Dory was stunned. Another young man who was cutting meat with a dagger raised his head and said with a smile, Let's not talk about these mobs from the banished lands. In fact, as long as Brother Luo Fei says the word, we can have as many troops as we want. Da Vinci, what do you mean by that? Dora squinted his eyes and smiled. Very simple. Luo Fei is the young master of the Nia family, and the head of the Nia family is a friend of the celestial pole continent's Qingji Empire's emperor, Baiming Yuan. In other words, if Baiming Yuan sees young master Luo Fei, he'll probably have to call you his nephew. Is that so? Dora smiled sweetly and looked at Luo Fei. Young master Luo Fei, is that so? Luo Fei frowned and said indifferently, Sheen is the captain of our battle angel team. Moreover, she's a golden-winged battle angel and has awakened the eyes of blazing dawn. In terms of status, she has long surpassed any of us. I feel that it's better not to secretly compete with Sheen, lest we end up in a bad situation. What do you mean by that? Could it be that young Master Luo Fei is afraid of Sheen? Dora smiled meaningfully. Don't forget, you're the young master of the Nia family. You have millions of troops behind you. Why would you be afraid of a mere Sheen? Luo Fei gritted his teeth. Sheen is also the sister of the blazing angel Shi Yan. Just based on this, who would dare to offend her? Dora opened her mouth. She was actually speechless. The dancing flames set off her beautiful face, and her mature body under the battle angel uniform was especially alluring. Dora, don't think too much. Give up. Luo Fei's gaze swept across Dora's chest as he said indifferently. Dora smiled. Late at night, the cold wind howled. The night environment in the land of exile was extremely harsh. Wild winds swept up flying rocks and smashed everything around them, so much so that the battle angel team had to activate a divine power barrier to defend against this kind of environment. Luo Fei wrapped himself in a blanket and placed his shield beside him. His ears were filled with the howling of the sand, but he couldn't sleep. He lay behind a rock to hide from the wind, but the sound only grew louder. After tossing and turning for a long time, a faint aura suddenly appeared behind Luo Fei. His whole body trembled. There seemed to be 2 lumps of softness pressed against his back. He didn't need to think to know what it was. His father had been very strict since he was a child, forbidding Luo Fei from getting close to women and being distracted. However, Luo Fei was already in his 20s, the age where he was full of vigor. He naturally knew what was behind him. It was a beautiful woman and she was almost naked. It was Dora. She was the only one in the entire Battle Angel team who was so bold and unrestrained. Luo Fei trembled all over and could hardly speak. Fortunately, Dora didn't speak either. She just rubbed her full chest and at the same time, one of her arms groped Luo Fei's chest. His ears were full of warm breaths. To have such a beauty as his companion in this barren land, Luo Fei couldn't help but be confused. He maintained the last of his calmness and looked into the distance. Terralyn Lake and the others were all wrapped in blankets and asleep. Sheen was sitting there leaning against the stone wall with her eyes closed. It was unknown if she was already asleep. Dora leaned close to his ear and asked softly, "Are you coming?" Luo Fei's heart was in a mess. He stretched out his fragrant tongue, and suddenly a warm feeling came, making Luo Fei feel as if he had fallen into an abyss full of flames, sinking deeper and deeper, unable to extricate himself. Under the flickering flames, the two bodies rolled together, releasing the passion and desire belonging to God. At this time in the Eight Wastelands, a lonely city stood in the wind and snow. Zhongnan City, which originally belonged to the demon race, had become one of the territories of the empire. Looking from afar, the Zhongnan City in the wind and snow was shining with a ray of light. It was the light of the soldiers who were responsible for guarding the city wall holding torches. Since receiving the news of Long Ji Corps' attack, the entire Zhongnan City had entered a state of high alert. In the city, candlelight swayed in the marshal's residence. The huge map was filled with small words. The Eight Wasteland Plain was vast. It was as big as half of the Cangnan province. There were dozens of cities belonging to the Zhongnan family scattered here and there, and the Zhongnan city was only the largest city among them. Lin Muyu pressed her hand on the ground and slowly walked to the table. Tang Xiaoxi held up a candle to illuminate for him. At the side, Wei Chou, Bai Yin and the others had an anxious look on their faces. Finally, after a few minutes, Wei Chou could not bear it anymore and asked, "Since we have already received the news of Chen Feng's troops, we should take advantage of the situation and attack. Your Highness, what are you waiting for? If we waste any more time, I am afraid that Chen Feng and his remaining Zhongnan Iron Cavalry will be completely annihilated." "I know, don't be anxious." Lin Muyu looked at the marked position of Long Ji Corps on the map and said, "Wei Chou, look at the terrain here. It is true that Chen Feng's army is trapped in the Wild Donkey Valley, but outside the Wild Donkey Valley is an even bigger valley, and it is a horseshoe-shaped valley. With the military strength of Long Ji Corps, I am afraid it will be easy for them to destroy Chen Feng's army, but they did not. Why is that? Could it be a trap set for us?" Wei Chou had been in the army for a long time, and naturally saw through it. "That's right." Lin Muyu pressed her palm on the table and said, "Fang Lan is waiting for us to rescue them. The road from Zhongnan City to the Wild Donkey Valley is very rugged. We cannot use too much military strength, at most a few tens of thousands of people, but just a few tens of thousands of people is definitely not a match for Long Ji Corps. They have the help of the Dragon Cavalry Regiment. It is not that simple." "Then what do we do now, to save or not to save Chen Feng's troops?" "Save, but we need to bluff." "What do you mean?" "How about this?" Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, "You lead 20,000 Longdan Army Camp elite cavalry out of Zhongnan City, and bluff 50 miles away from the Wild Donkey Valley. Remember not to go more than 10 miles away from Zhongnan City, or else it will be easy to lose the cover of the magic crystal cannons and be chased by the dragon cavalry in the sky. I will lead 500 people, all dressed in white robes, and cross the mountains from the southwest snow region into the icebound polar lands, bring enough ropes and rescue Chen Feng's army from the back of the mountain. Xiaoxi will stay in Zhongnan City and be ready to receive us at any time. This plan must be careful. One mistake will lead to eternal damnation." "Yes, your subordinate obeys." Chapter 8:14. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The crossbows tore through the gale and shot into the bodies of the soldiers and the war horses. Blood splattered on the white snow like red plum blossoms. It was unknown how many times they had tried to break out of the encirclement, but it was all in vain. The entrance of the Wild Donkey Valley was already piled up with a thick layer of corpses. The devils didn't even dare to drag the corpses of their companions back, as they would only become the targets of their opponents. Countless cavalrymen threw away their helmets and armor and retreated. Their faces were pale and they couldn't get out. Crack. Chen Feng stabbed his sword into the snow in a daze. His body was extremely weak. The armor from his right shoulder to his heart was split open by the blade of the sword, leaving a long bloody wound. It was obvious that it was forcefully slashed by someone. The person who could cause such serious injuries to Chen Feng, who had stepped into the godly state, must also be a godly state expert. Moreover, Chen Feng's robe had been burnt to only a few dozen centimeters. That was the masterpiece of the dragon's breath. Marshal, we're trapped. The deputy general dismounted his horse and said, "No matter how hard our cavalrymen charge, we can't get out. They have placed many archers at the entrance of the valley. Even if we rush out of this wild donkey valley, I'm afraid that their dragon riders will be waiting for us outside. The arrows of the Zhongnan Iron Cavalry have been used up. We can't resist the dragon riders at all. We will only become a delicious meal for the dragon if we go. It's them. Qianfeng knelt in the snow with a dull look in his eyes. He murmured, they are the ones who killed His Majesty Jinger and Ning. They are the ones who wiped out the entire Protoss race. A few captaincy looked furious. One by one they pulled out their swords and said, Marshal, let's go and fight them. At worst we will die. At least we will not let down the souls of our fallen brothers. Do you know who our opponents are? Qianfeng asked. I know. The deputy general's voice trembled slightly as he said, they are from the celestial pole continent on the other side of the East Sea. They are the Tianji Empire's Dragon Cavalry Regiment and Longji Corps. Judging from their path and direction, they must have passed through the entire icebound pole to arrive here. Marshal, let's fight it out with them. This group of bloodthirsty beasts is even more ruthless and tyrannical than the Qin Empire's army. Let's fight it out and avenge His Majesty and the two princes. No, Qianfeng waved his hand. His lips were a little dry as he said, how many men do we have left? How many warhorses do we have? There are still about 8,000 warriors from the southern plains. Many of their warhorses have been damaged. Once they see the dragon knights, the warhorses will be intimidated. Some of the warhorses will even stop moving. Many of them have been lost. Now there are only about 3,000 of them. Only 3,000. Qianfeng was at a loss. These 8,000 warriors are the last hope of our celestial race. If we really go all out, the celestial race will disappear from this continent? The deputy general was taken aback. Yes, Marshal. Then, what are your plans? Has the winged army brought any news? Yes, the winged army we sent out was chased by the dragon knights in the sky and suffered heavy losses. However, many winged army members still managed to escape. Someone brought back news. A day ago, a team of 10,000 cavalrymen from the Longdan army camp entered Zhongnan city. However, they were too far away so we couldn't see if Lin Muyu and Wei Chou had come in person. Only 10,000? Qianfeng leaned against the short pine tree behind him and exhaled a breath of hot air. He said, Lin Muyu has come. Otherwise, with Wei Chou's nature, he wouldn't have only sent 10,000 soldiers. Moreover, he wouldn't have come so quickly. As he said this, Qianfeng's eyes actually became a little livelier. The deputy general was stunned. So what if Lin Muyu has come? He is still our mortal enemy. Does the marshal expect Lin Muyu to lend a helping hand and save the last army of our celestial race? No, I won't place my hopes on him. Qianfeng grabbed the blade and his eyes suddenly became determined. He said, gather all the remaining winged army warriors and magic crystal detonators. Once the Longji army enters the Wild Donkey Valley, immediately launch a self-detonation attack from both sides. Even if we die, we must let the beasts of the Tianji Empire know that the celestial race won't yield. Yes. At dusk, the flags of the Longji army and the Tianji Empire fluttered in the wind outside the Wild Donkey Valley. The dragon knights were flying in the air, controlling all the air dominance and also making the demon race unable to move a step. On a slope, the snow was covered with dense horse hoof prints. More than a dozen people dressed in the armor of senior officers were standing on horses on the slope. Among them, a general with a slender chin and a long beard was wearing 5 gold stars on his chest. In the Tianji Empire, 5 gold stars represented supreme power. Apart from the emperor and the marshal, only commander-level officers and nobles could wear 5 gold stars. Needless to say, this person was the commander of the Longji Corps, Fang Lan. Behind Fang Lan, 3 deputy commanders wearing 4 gold stars looked coldly at the Wild Donkey Valley in the distance. In the air, a mighty and steady dragon knight was sitting on the back of a dragon. It was none other than the dragon knight Su Chuan. No one knew that Su Chuan had actually come to the Shattered Cauldron world. They are already cornered beasts. Fang Lan held the iron spear and said with a smile, the legendary demon race that almost destroyed the Qin Empire seems to be nothing more than this. Lord Su Chuan, when do you think is the best time for us to attack? Su Chuan stroked his beard and said, Commander Fang Lan is the commander of this army. Everything is up to you. All right. Fang Lan's eyes were filled with a fierce light as he said, attack immediately when it gets dark. Send out 5,000 troops on the ground. The dragon knights will cover in the air and guard against their surprise attacks from the sky. Yes. At this moment, a rider flew over to report. The warhorse was so fast that the horse's hooves slid a few meters on the snowy ground before it came to a dangerous stop. The scout got off the horse and knelt on one knee. Lord Commander, Zhongnan City has already sent out their troops. The Longdan army camp has sent out about 20,000 people, and they are all cavalry. They set off 4 hours ago and they are probably less than 2 hours away from here. Longdan army camp. Fanglan couldn't help but laugh. I didn't expect our luck to be so good. We are actually going to clash with the #1 army of the Shattered Cauldron world so soon. 2 hours is enough. After we eliminate the demon race, we will immediately turn around and welcome the Longdan army camp. Alright, have you found out who is leading them? Their flag only has the word Wei and no Lin. It should be Duke Wei Weiqiu who is leading them personally. Weiqiu. Fanglan laughed heartily. Even a clown like Weiqiu is praised as a famous general in the Shattered Cauldron world. Good. This time I will let them see the fall of a famous general. Sound the drums immediately. It's getting dark. Launch the attack on the Wild Donkey Valley. Yes. The war drums thundered and the war was about to begin. When the densely packed beast cavalry of the Longji army stepped on the corpses of the demon race and entered the Wild Donkey Valley, it also meant that the war was about to end. Roar, roar. The mounts of the tiger leopard cavalry let out sky-piercing roars. The ferocious tigers seemed to be very hungry. One of the mounts opened its mouth and bit off the head of a Zhongnan iron cavalryman's corpse. Then it took a big bite. The white juice mixed with the blood, and the crunching sounds made people's hearts tremble. Since that's the case, then let's attack after we're full. A tiger leopard cavalry leader laughed heartily. The rest of the tiger leopard cavalry followed suit. The ferocious tigers began to devour the corpses of the Zhongnan iron cavalrymen on the spot. The speed at which they ate was very fast. 3 to 5 tiger leopard cavalry surrounded a corpse, and in just 3 to 5 minutes, there were only white bones left. It was a ghastly sight. In less than 10 minutes, hundreds of corpses had been devoured at the entrance of the valley. It was incomparably cruel. All right, attack. In the air, Su Chuan held the dragon spear in his hand and seemed to be a little impatient. Yes. The tiger leopard cavalry was known as the king of the beast cavalry of the Tianji Empire. However, in front of the dragon cavalry they were just a group of lackeys on the ground. Therefore, the tiger leopard cavalry was naturally very respectful to Su Chuan, a dragon cavalry general. One after another, they lifted the heads of the tiger leopard cavalry and advanced in a straight line. The air was filled with the sound of the flapping wings of the giant dragons. Every dragon cavalry used their wings to protect the tiger leopard cavalry below them. Even with such a huge disparity in strength, the Longji army still maintained a perfect battle formation. It was clear that they were well trained. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The sharp claws of the tiger leopard cavalry stepped on the snow, making a rustling sound. Other than that, there was only the rustling of the cold night wind. However, Su Chuan frowned and said, "Something doesn't seem right." "What's wrong, Lord Su Chuan?" asked a commander in the tiger leopard cavalry. "I don't know. Tell everyone to be careful." "Yes." At this moment, the dark Wild Donkey Valley was filled with noises. One by one, torches lit up. It was the last few thousand Southern Iron Cavalry. Su Chuan took a deep breath and said, "They're here." However, Su Chuan was wrong. Qianfeng's intelligence was not below his. He thought too simply of Qianfeng. Swoosh, 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 in the air figures flew down. It was the winged army. Each of them held a magic crystal in their hands. At the same time there was a flashing detonator. It was a suicide attack. This was a tactic that Qianfeng had no choice but to use. Be careful. Su Chuan seemed to be able to predict the power contained in these magic crystals. He shouted, "All dragon cavalry, activate the dragon imperial spin." Now. In the air, the roars of the giant dragons joined together. The power of the giant dragons merged with the power of the dragon cavalry, forming an azure blue dragon imperial spin. The dragon imperial spin was like a giant whirlpool barrier, protecting the dragon cavalry and the tiger leopard cavalry. Bang bang bang, mushroom clouds rose into the sky. Purple lightning instantly lit up the world. The suicidal magic crystal detonation tactic had been completed. The lives of nearly 500 winged army members disappeared in an instant. They turned into roaring purple flames. The power of the magic crystals was so strong that it formed an insurmountable curtain in the air. Did we succeed? Qianfeng's eyes widened. Sweat dripped from his forehead. The smoke and clouds dispersed. Roar, roar, roar. Dragon roars resounded and Qianfeng's mood instantly fell to the bottom. He had failed. The Dragon Imperial Spin was not afraid of the magic crystals. Chapter 8:15. Dragons were the closest existences to gods in the mortal world. Dragons were sacred. Demons were the gathering of evil spirits in the three realms. They were demonic creatures that could unleash the power of extreme yin and evil. Magic crystals came from the earth's mineral veins and were derived from the corpses of demonic creatures. They possessed immense destructive power and impact, causing the magic crystal cannons to be shockingly powerful. However, they were mutually exclusive. Dragons were sacred creatures and were born with the power to rule over demons. Dragon crystals were the crystallization of a dragon's life essence. Any cultivator who could merge with a dragon and cultivate the Dragon Imperial Cyclone would have to combine the essence of the dragon crystal with the divine power of heaven and earth in the human body. That was why the seemingly simple Dragon Imperial Cyclone not only contained divine power, but also the essence of the dragon crystal. The magic crystal cannons could destroy anything, but they were extremely fearful of the dragon crystal and could not touch it at all. When the smoke in the sky dissipated, the dragon riders were still soaring in the sky. The dragon's eyes were burning with hatred. Su Chuan raised his dragon spear and laughed. 2 months ago, we knew that the Dragon Imperial Cyclone was a natural counter to the magic crystal cannons. What? Chen Feng, do you think you can defeat us with mere magic crystals? Warriors of the Longji army kill. The roars of the tiger leopard riders mixed with the roars of the dragon and shot into the sky. The sound of hooves thundered. The last 3,000 Zhongnan iron cavalry raised their weapons and charged at their opponents. This was their final choice. They would rather die than be humiliated. Chen Feng looked at the dissipating smoke from the magic crystal cannons and took a few steps back in despair. He knelt on the ground. The death of 500 winged warriors was only exchanged for the ridicule of the enemy? For the first time in his life, Chen Feng could no longer see hope. Watching as the Central South Iron Cavalry charged into the opponent's Tiger Leopard Cavalry phalanx and then turned into a pile of charcoal in the dragon flames, Chen Feng felt as if his heart was pierced by thousands of arrows. The demon race was really finished. Right at this moment, a shwa 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 sound came from the precipice behind him. Thick ropes that were over 100 meters long were hanging down from the precipice. Immediately after, a voice sounded in his ear, "Marshal Chen Feng, what are you waiting for? Take your men and abandon the warhorses. Take advantage of the night and secretly move away. You definitely don't want to see the demon race being exterminated, right?" It was Lin Muyu's voice. Chen Feng's throat was a little dry. He wanted to shout but he couldn't. He never thought that Lin Muyu would really come. The enemy was so powerful that they came to the Shattered Cauldron realm with a crushing force. If Lin Muyu made a move, it would mean that the Qin Empire declared war on the Celestial Pole continent. This required a lot of confidence and courage. Chen Feng knew that he did not have this kind of courage. If it was not a last resort, he would never be willing to be the enemy of such a powerful opponent like the Tianji Empire. However, taking a step forward was an abyss and taking a step back was also an abyss. Chen Feng had no choice but to do so. At the front, the 3,000 Zhongnan Iron Cavalry were desperately resisting the attack of the Tiger Leopard Riders and the Tianji Dragon Riders. Behind them were a group of high-level demon infantrymen who had taken off their armors and were holding steel swords, ready to fight in close combat. Chen Feng had no choice but to do so. Quick! He jumped up and pointed at the ropes hanging down from the precipice. He said, "Everyone climb up the ropes immediately and leave the Wild Donkey Valley." The deputy general was shocked. "But our cavalry is still in front. They are warriors who are loyal to the country. Don't say anything more. Retreat immediately." "Yes." The Zhongnan Iron Cavalry, who were ready to die heroically, grabbed the ropes one after another. Their climbing skills were good. They grabbed the ropes and rushed to the top of the precipice as if they were walking on flat ground. Chen Feng quickly rose up with his sword in hand. Looking from afar, there was almost no one on the precipice. However, if he looked closely, he would find that the people brought by Lin Muyu were all wearing white robes, which blended in with the color of the snow. It was very difficult to notice them. No wonder they could break through the blockade of the Tianji Empire's army and come here. Lin Muyu held her sword in her hand as she stood on the peak of the mountain. She exuded an honest and calm aura. Perhaps only a famous general who had been through hundreds of battles would have such an aura. Chen Feng could not help but be moved. He said in a low voice, "Your Highness Emperor Qin, Marshal Chen Feng, long time no see. Thank you, Your Highness, for coming to save us. Stop talking. Hurry up and retreat. How many people do you have? Only 5,000. So few. Lin Muyu was stunned. Qian Feng could not help but feel sad. He said, "This is the last 5,000 people of the Shen clan. Your Highness, why did you come to save us?" The cold wind blew and made Lin Muyu's cloak flutter. He was silent for a few seconds and said, "If I didn't come to save you, it would be our turn after the Qinji Empire eliminated the entire devil clan." Qian Feng's heart trembled. Lin Muyu's short sentence was simple, but it was better than thousands of words. What could be more practical than this sentence? In the face of a common enemy, enemies would often become friends. This was an unchanging truth. Qian Feng had always admired Lin Muyu's character and strategy. In fact, he hoped to have such a friend deep in his heart. However, Qian Feng never thought that the price of becoming friends with Lin Muyu was the destruction of the entire devil clan. Looking down at the whole wild donkey valley, flames rose to the sky. This was not a fight but a massacre. The 3,000 Zhongnan Iron Cavalry were no match for the 5,000 Tiger Leopard Cavalry at all. Moreover, they had the help of the invincible Dragon Cavalry. Qian Feng could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Lin Muyu stepped forward and patted his arm gently. She said, "Only by surviving can you have the possibility to wash away your shame. Take your 5,000 people and follow me. Except for the Qin Empire, you have no other way out." "What does your Highness plan to do with us?" Qian Feng's eyes flickered. He said, "I am a member of the Shen clan. Even if your Highness saved me, Qian Feng would never be willing to be a slave." "I know." Lin Muyu sighed deeply. Qian Feng was such a proud person. How could he surrender to the enemy? After pondering for a while, Lin Muyu said, "Let's go back to Zhongnan City first. The rest will be clear later. If you are willing, you can continue to be the marshal of the Devil Clan. I will give up the Tongtian Gorge. We will govern the Tongtian Gorge together and fight against the Celestial Pole Continent together." Qian Feng was stunned. He nodded and said, "Thank you, Your Highness. It's not that I want to take care of you. I just don't want to be destroyed." Lin Muyu looked at the scene of the massacre at the foot of the mountain and said meaningfully, "Very soon the 5,000 high-level demons had all retreated. After Lin Muyu gave the order, everyone abandoned the rope and quickly disappeared into the snowy forest. It would take at least a day to walk back to Zhongnan City from here, and this day would not be an easy one." In the biting cold wind, Lin Muyu looked to the southwest and said softly, "Wei Chou, it's up to you now." Qian Feng said in a low voice, "Your Highness, the attack of the magic crystal is ineffective against the Dragon Knights. They have a strange power field that can form a boundary that can perfectly defend against the invasion of the magic crystal." "I saw it." Lin Muyu nodded, but her heart was full of despair and helplessness. The suicide attack of the Wingmen Legion of the Devil Clan was completely ineffective, which also meant that the magic crystal cannons of the Empire would be helpless against the Dragon Knights. The biggest trump card was useless. What would the Qin Empire rely on to defeat the powerful enemy? After pondering for a while, Lin Muyu's consciousness had penetrated dozens of miles and directly found the aura of Wei Chou. Suddenly, a golden light fell on the snowy ground. This was the oracle of the same plane. Wei Chou immediately knelt and said, "I pay my respects to Your Highness." "Wei Chou, there is one thing I must tell you. The attack of the magic crystal is ineffective against the Dragon Knights. Their Dragon Imperial Battle Spiral can perfectly defend against the invasion of the magic crystal cannons, so your magic crystal crossbows are destined to be useless." "What?" Wei Chou was shocked. Then how are we going to resist the enemy? We have to resist even if we can't." Lin Muyu's expression was a bit strict as she said, "This time the importance of rescuing Qian Feng's troops is extraordinary. Only the Devil Clan knows how to use the worm nest in the Tongtian Gorge. Only when Qian Feng surrenders to us can we restart the worm nest and hatch new giant flying snakes to help us resist the invasion of the Dragon Knights. You must bite the Qian Feng Legion's main force for 4 hours. Only then can I bring Qian Feng's people back to the southern part of the city safely. This is a military order you cannot disobey." Wei Chou clenched his teeth and said, "Yes, Your Highness, rest assured, I will definitely complete the mission." The moment Lin Muyu's oracle disappeared, Wei Chou only felt his whole body trembling. Was it because the weather was too cold? Perhaps. The war flag was waved and Wei Chou's voice reverberated across the snowy plains, "Brothers, prepare to attack." The drums thundered, and the 20,000 heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp galloped through the snowy ground. After traveling for a short distance, the sound of horse hooves could be heard in the distance. Flames flickered, and the opponent had already come to face them. It was the heavy cavalry of the Longji army. The heavy cavalry of the Celestial Pole continent was more focused on defense. Their whole body was almost wrapped in thick armor, and their warhorses seemed to be a bit stronger than those of the Shattered Cauldron realm, enough to support this heavy weight. Dragon roars could be heard in the sky, and only black figures could be seen in the wind and snow. Wei Chou couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart, but he knew that he definitely couldn't take the initiative to fight. If he were to be stuck by the opponent in close combat, his own people would definitely not be able to escape. Change to the magic crystal crossbow. Don't aim at the dragon knights, aim and shoot 20 meters in front of the heavy cavalry on the ground. After a round of shooting, immediately change to the white drill arrow crossbow. Fight while retreating, don't let the opponent stick to us. Wei Chou roared out an order. He was very smart and knew how to deal with sudden changes. Although many of the cavalry of the Longdan army camp were deeply puzzled, military orders were like mountains and no one disobeyed. One by one they took out the magic crystal crossbow, loaded the magic crystal arrows with azure blue luster, and aimed straight into the distance. Dong dong dong, the war drums reverberated and the Longji army launched an attack. They all raised their torches and Wei Chou only took a glance and felt a chill in his heart. The Longji army had at least 30,000 heavy cavalry here, and in addition to the dozens of dragon knights in the sky, their strength was already terrifying to the point that it was enough to completely annihilate the army behind him. Chapter 8:16. Fire. As Wei Chou roared in a low voice, the magic crystal crossbows shot into the sky one after another, dragging azure flames behind them as they made a sharp chirping sound. However, they were not shooting at the exact position of the opponent, but at the position where the opponent was about to arrive. When the magic crystal crossbows hit the ground one after another, the opponent was still 10 meters away from where they were shooting, and when the heavy cavalry of Longji army arrived, the magic crystal crossbows had also been fired. Ping ping ping, streaks of purple flames shot into the sky. Although the power of the magic crystal crossbows was not as powerful as the heavy magic crystal cannons, it was still amazing, especially when the opponent was caught off guard. Along with the roar, hundreds of heavy cavalry at the front were almost instantly engulfed by the light of the magic crystal crossbows. The power of the explosion of the magic crystal was so strong that it directly melted the armor, and the hundreds of heavy cavalry of the Qinji Empire were almost instantly turned into a pile of ashes. Change to the white drill crossbows. Get ready, fire. Wei Chou's order echoed in the air, and it was as if only his voice was left in the entire snowfield. Puff, puff, puff. The white drill crossbows were so sharp that they pierced through the armor of the heavy cavalry at the back, and the snowfield that was engaged in the battle also lost its original whiteness. The rumbling of the horses' hooves was deafening, and it only gave the Longdan army camp a few seconds to shoot. In the blink of an eye, the opponent's heavy cavalry was already close to them in close combat. Turn back, let's go. Wei Chou pulled the reins and led everyone to retreat quickly. However, it seemed that it was a little too late. A dragon's roar came from behind, and the dragon's might swept down like a domain. The horses of the heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp at the back immediately became anxious, and they stood up crazily, giving up on retreating. Oh my god, what are they doing? Fengshi was stunned. Wei Chou felt a pain in his heart. Ignore them, continue to retreat. Behind them, flames soared into the sky. It was the dragon knight riding on the dragon's breath. Flames shrouded the area. The dragon flame was so powerful that the armor of the Empire couldn't withstand it at all. In the blink of an eye, the cavalry of the valiant dragon battalion that was left behind screamed miserably in the flames. They were burned beyond recognition. However, they were elite soldiers who had been through hundreds of battles. In the flames, some of them still jumped off their horses that had lost control and charged toward the enemy's heavy cavalry. Puff, puff, puff. Streaks of sword light flew up, followed by heads falling to the ground. How could infantry withstand the attack of heavy cavalry? In the air, a dragon rider holding a fiery red long blade narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "First team, follow me and catch up to them. Don't leave a single one alive and kill them all. The rest of the teams will activate the Dragon Imperial Battle Spin to protect the heavy cavalry. The cunning Shattered Cauldron Realm army will continuously use those strange demonic crystal crossbows to exhaust us." It was none other than Lei Wen, and the saber in his hand was the Muddy Fire Saber. Dragon roars rang out as 10 dragon knights descended from the sky and landed directly in the center of the Longdan army camp's cavalry regiment. Without any hesitation they swung their dragon swords and slashed down with divine power. Boom, boom, boom. The earth crumbled and blood danced in the air. No matter how elite the soldiers of the Longdan army camp were, they would not be able to withstand the attack of a god, let alone a god who had a giant dragon as his mount. The formation was quickly cut into several pieces. Wei Chou watched anxiously. He suddenly pulled on the reins, and the demon-devouring bow appeared in his hand. Knocking an arrow, he aimed straight at the dragon rider Luan in the distance. Whoosh! The arrow transformed into a cold light and flew away at lightning speed. Bang! The sharp arrow collided with the dragon imperial battle spiral a few meters in front of Lei Wen and exploded into broken wood and scrap metal. Even the white diamond arrow could do nothing to the divine power wall of a sacred martial king. Courting death. Lei Wen laughed sinisterly and actually turned around and disappeared from the dragon's back, shattering the void. In the next moment, a cold divine power cyclone appeared on the side of Wei Chou, and the muddy fire saber turned into a blazing flame and attacked. Wei Chou saw it clearly, but his opponent's strength and speed were completely above his. There was no time to dodge and he could only hold the demon-devouring bow and fall from the horse. With a piu sound, a rain of blood fluttered, and the warhorse was directly split into two. Wei Chou pulled out his sword and his figure flashed. Starlight soared into the sky, and he struck Lei Wen's head with initial starlight. Bang! The cyclone surged but Lei Wen did not dodge or give way. He raised his head and looked at Wei Chou mockingly. This initial starlight could not break Lei Wen's defense at all. The difference in strength between the two was too big. Lei Wen brazenly stabbed out with his saber, and with a piu sound, it pierced through Wei Chou's shoulder, and the blade came out from his back, dripping with blood. Wei Chou endured the great pain, and his left hand firmly grasped the hilt of his saber. His battle boots kicked out and he went straight for his opponent's abdomen. After a loud sound, Wei Chou's kick did not break through his opponent's astral wall, but he used the rebound force to pull his body away from the saber. Otherwise, if Lei Wen's saber had slashed downwards, Wei Chou's heart would probably have been split in two. Protect Duke Wei. In the surroundings, a group of soldiers from the Brave Dragon Battalion surrounded him. Their swords and spears were suffused with innate qi and do qi as they attacked the powerful dragon rider general, Lei Wen. Wei Chou, with the help of his subordinates, rode on another warhorse and quickly left the battlefield. Behind him, flames rose into the sky. Evaporate, you trash! Lei Wen raised his saber and roared. His divine power exploded, and flames rose into the sky, forming a shockwave no weaker than a magic crystal cannon. In an instant, dozens of meters of Longdan army camp soldiers turned into ashes, and they died horribly. The sound of horse hooves was intense, and blood kept flowing out from Wei Chou's shoulder. When he heard the screams behind him, his expression changed drastically, and his nose turned sour. Tears flowed down his face. He actually cried. Many of the people who died behind him were people who had followed him for many years, and they were the brave warriors of the Empire who had experienced hundreds of battles. But under the blade of a godlike opponent, they could only be slaughtered. In the curtain of snow, another group of Longdan army camp soldiers quickly gathered. It was Fengshi and 10,000 men. Duke Wei, are you all right? Fengshi could see that Wei Chou was injured. The back of his white cloak was already covered in blood, and there was a glaring hole. I'm fine. Wei Chou clenched his teeth and said, Command the army to continue to maintain a distance from the enemy and delay them. We cannot let them march straight to South Central City. Yu Shu, inform Princess Shi to strengthen the security of South Central City. Our opponents will come at any time. Yes. This was destined to not be a peaceful night. Flames rose and fell in the snowfield, and the two armies were using blood to write a game of war. But even if Wei Chou commanded properly, the absolute strength of Long Ji's army made him unable to do anything. Furthermore, Lei Wen and the other dragon knights chased after them like a shadow, causing centurions and kiliarchs to die heroically for the country. This war was far more difficult than they had imagined. The two armies dragged out a long battle mark on the snowfield, and every 3 to 5 miles, there would be a pile of burning remains. Longdan army camp did not completely retreat, but moved and stopped occasionally, using projectiles and magic crystal crossbows to kill the opponent. Wei Chou was a famous general, and he knew how to use the formation to tear apart the opponent's perfect defense. Even when he was injured, he still held a magic crystal crossbow, and shot a fatal blow at the area where the opponent's dragon knights did not have the time to protect, causing the opponent's heavy cavalry to suffer heavy losses. Under such a mobile battle, Long Ji's army could no longer maintain a perfect formation, and every time they revealed a flaw, they would be dealt a heavy blow by Long Dan army camp. But moving and stopping like this, Long Dan army camp suffered even more heavy losses. Until daybreak, the front army had already left the snowfield, but the pursuers behind them still did not stop. The dragon knights circling above their heads were like maggots in the tarsal bone, making people uncomfortable. Don't tell me they never know fatigue? Fengshi raised his head and looked at the sky. God knows when the dragon knights would descend and launch another fierce attack. Wei Chao's face was pale, and he did not have time to bandage his wounds during the rapid march. The excessive blood loss almost made him on the verge of collapse. But what made Wei Chao even more unable to bear was the loss of the Long Dan army camp. This time they brought 20,000 elite soldiers, but there were not many who were still with them, and most of them had been left in the snowfield forever. In the surroundings, almost everyone's body was covered in blood. Every collision was a fight to the death. How many people do we have left? Wei Chao held the neck of his warhorse, and his whole body was almost lying on the horse's back. There are about 7,000 people left, and 3,000 to 4,000 of them are still fighting, and the rest are injured. Some are seriously injured, and if they don't receive treatment soon, their lives will be in danger, Fengshi said in a low voice. Wei Chao remained silent. He raised his head to look ahead and said, "We are almost at the south-central city's pass. Let's not stay any longer, let's pass through at full speed, and order the magic crystal cannon at the pass to prepare to fire." "But, the magic crystal cannons are useless against the dragon knights? Even so, we have to bombard them." "Yes, Duke Wei." As if he had spoken too forcefully, Wei Chao suddenly felt a wave of dizziness engulfing him, causing him to fall from his warhorse. "Duke Wei! Duke Wei!" Everyone panicked. Fengshi jumped off the horse and carried Wei Chao's body and said, "Let's go into the pass." Boom, boom, boom. The magic crystal cannons roared, and launched a devastating bombardment, but the enemy's heavy cavalry were all unharmed under the protection of the dragon knights. After a full 5 minutes, the Long Ji army showed signs of retreating. They finally retreated. Fengshi breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the blood stains on the snow, and the wounded soldiers of the Long Dan army camp who entered the pass, and suddenly he couldn't help but feel bitter. The first battle was like this, how could they fight in the future? What's more, the people sent by the Long Ji army were just the tip of the iceberg of the 4 major armies of the Tianji Empire. If their 2 million troops came overwhelming, what would the result be? Thinking of this, Fengshi's face was livid. The future was unimaginably cruel. Chapter 8:17. When Lin Muyu brought the remnants of the Devil clan back to Zhongnan City, it was already close to noon. It was snowing heavily. Tang Xiaoxi led the elite cavalry of the Long Dan army camp in Zhongnan City to welcome them. They met on the snowy plains 20 miles away from the city. Seeing Lin Muyu return safely, Tang Xiaoxi was very gratified. However, when Tang Xiaoxi's gaze fell on Qian Feng was still somewhat uneasy and embarrassed. "The defeated general, Qian Feng, greets your highness Shi." He bowed respectfully, using the etiquette of the Devil clan towards the princess. "No need to be so polite. I'm not Feng Yuan's daughter." A faint smile hung on Tang Xiaoxi's face as she said, "Furthermore, Feng Yuan has always treated me like a daughter. All you want is the demonic energy in my body." Qian Feng was a little surprised. "Princess Shi, do you still hold a grudge against the God clan for what they did to you?" "I will never forget." Tang Xiaoxi turned around and mounted the horse. Her red cloak swirled in the flying snow. She turned around and looked deeply at Qian Feng. She said, "If it wasn't for your sacred teacher and Yaoji, I wouldn't have killed Xiao Yin. I will never forget this hatred for the rest of my life." "Qian Feng, the alliance between the humans and the Devil clan is just Mu's idea. I respect Emperor Qin's wish, but it doesn't mean I don't hate the Devil clan." Qian Feng laughed self-deprecatingly. "That's fine. I am the marshal of the God clan. Now that His Majesty and the 2 princesses are dead with their heads missing, it's not too much for you to vent all your hatred on me, Qian Feng." Lin Muyu walked over holding the reins of the warhorse and reached out to press on Tang Xiaoxi's leg on the horse's back. She said, "Xiaoxi, don't say any more. Times have changed. It's not fair to put the blame on Qian Feng." Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said softly, "Okay, I understand. Lin Muyu then looked at Qian Feng and said, the heads of Feng Yuan, Feng Jing'er and Feng Ning'er were sent to Winter Frost City by the Empire of Tianji as a gift. I have ordered a grand funeral for them as the Emperor of the Qin Empire. Really? Qian Feng's body trembled subconsciously as he said, thank you, Your Highness. After everything has settled down, can I pay my respects to His Majesty and the two princesses? That's your freedom. Lin Muyu exhaled and said, everyone has been walking for a whole night. Let's go to Zhongnan City and eat something hot. Otherwise I'm afraid many people will get sick. Okay. Tang Xiaoxi said, Mu, are you really going to allow these demons to enter Zhongnan City? Her meaning was self-evident. 3 months ago the demons were still fighting with the Empire in the Eight Wastelands, and they were both mortal enemies. But now the two armies were going to coexist peacefully. Perhaps many people would not accept this fact. Xiaoxi, what do you think? Lin Muyu asked. Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips. The Longdan army camp and the Zhongnan family's army have fought many times, and there has been a deep hatred between them. If they are allowed to enter Zhongnan City, I'm afraid there will inevitably be friction. I think it's better to let Qian Feng lead the demon army to camp in a small town outside the city. There are enough houses there and food can be transported from Zhongnan City. What does Marshal Qian Feng think? Lin Muyu asked. Qian Feng's expression was calm. Your Highness can call me Qian Feng. The god race has suffered a crushing defeat, and I'm no longer a marshal. As for the encampment, it's up to Your Highness to arrange. Don't worry. Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, your god race will rise again. Let's get through this period of time first. Moreover, I'm afraid we won't be able to stay in Zhongnan City for too long. What? Tang Xiaoxi asked in astonishment. Lin Muyu's gaze turned towards the northern snowy region, and with a trace of helplessness and sorrow she said, Zhongnan City is located on the Eight Wastelands, and to the north of the Eight Wastelands is the snowy region. However, there is simply no place to defend. The few insignificant passes are only a few meters high. If we stubbornly defend the Eight Wastelands, our losses will be very heavy. Then Mu, what do you mean? Prepare to retreat to the Tongtian Gorge. Qian Feng was shocked. Your Highness, are you going to give such a large Eight Wastelands to the Tianji Empire? We have no other choice. Lin Muyu brushed the snow on her shoulder, held Taksha's reins and said, the Longdan army camp can't suffer meaningless losses. In the battle last night, Wei Chou must have lost a lot of people, right? Tang Xiaoxi was a little sad and said, in order to save these people of the devil race, more than 13,000 people of the Longdan army camp died in the snowy region since last night. More than half of the more than 6,000 people who came back were injured. Even Wei Chou was seriously injured and is now resting in Zhongnan City. Only one night and our casualty barracks and medicine are already not enough. Ah. Lin Muyu felt a pain in her heart and clenched her fists. Qian Feng frowned and said, it's my fault to let the Longdan army camp suffer such a loss. Your Highness, please rest assured. The Tianji Empire killed my whole family, but as long as I, Qian Feng, am still alive, I will definitely fight with the Tianji Empire to the end. Well, save your strength first. Let's go. Lin Muyu turned over and mounted the horse and said, someone send more scouts to find out the situation of the Longji army camp. In addition, send more scouts to investigate the coastal area. Yes. The wind and snow fluttered, and the troops walked in the direction of Zhongnan City. Zhongnan City, this ancient city of thousands of years, had mottled walls. It was like an old man standing at the northern border of the mainland. When a strong enemy came, this old man seemed so vulnerable and could not stop the attack of the iron hooves of Zhongnan City. Qian Feng's troops went into the small town to rest. Although it was just a small town, it was like heaven for the devil race who had been struggling at death's door for several months. To be able to drink a mouthful of hot water and eat a fragrant steamed bun was such a luxury for them. Even the face of Marshal Qian Feng was very ugly, obviously because of the lack of nutrition. Walking on the main street of Zhongnan City, the hooves of the horses stepped on the thick snow, and the sound of rustling could be heard. Is the Dragon Imperial battle armor really not afraid of the magic crystal cannons? Tang Xiaoxi thought for a long time and finally could not help but ask. Lin Muyu nodded, yes, Marshal Qian Feng can prove this. Qian Feng's face was gloomy and said, the Dragon Imperial battle armor seems to be the natural nemesis of the magic crystal. We sent 500 winged clan brothers to launch a suicide attack, but we did not receive even the slightest effect. They used their lives to prove that the Dragon Imperial battle armor can restrain the magic crystal. It's not just them. Tang Xiaoxi said in a calm voice, "There are also more than 10,000 soldiers from the Longdan army camp who died for the country. They were also stained with blood on the battlefield because of the power of the Dragon Imperial battle armor." Qian Feng was a little silent, and after a few seconds he said lightly, "I'm sorry." Lin Muyu felt very uncomfortable in her heart. Tang Xiaoxi's hatred for the demon race was far deeper than she thought. In this battle, the Longdan army camp lost more than 10,000 elite soldiers because of the demon race. This was also a heavy blow to the Imperial army. But Lin Muyu was very clear in her heart that she must reconcile this contradiction, otherwise it will lead to a big disaster in the future. Xiao Shi, the demon race, is also the victim. He looked at Tang Xiaoxi beside him and said softly, "Think about it, the tens of thousands of soldiers of the Longji Corps cooperated with the Tianji Dragon Riders to cross the northern glacial land bridge, for a surprise attack, and coincidentally the demon race's army encountered them in the north. In fact, it was the demon race who blocked this knife for our Qin Empire. In a sense, we have to thank the demon race for their sacrifice." Tang Xiaoxi opened her small mouth in shock and murmured. Lin Muyu's words woke her up from her dream, and made her change her view in an instant. Qian Feng's voice was very bitter. "It's a pity that the price of this sacrifice is the lives of our Majesty and the two princes. Ning is my friend, I won't let her die in vain." Tang Xiaoxi's pair of beautiful eyes looked at the distant sky, clenched her pink fist, and a faint flame lingered around her body. "The Longji Corps killed Ning I will definitely settle this debt with them. A debt of blood must be paid with blood. Yes, a debt of blood must be paid with blood." Qian Feng gritted his teeth. Lin Muyu was silent. What he was thinking about was when to retreat. They definitely couldn't stay in Zhongnan City. Once the main force of the Tianji Empire crossed the sea, they would be able to encircle Zhongnan City in the blink of an eye. At that time it would be difficult to leave. At this time, they had already arrived at the city lord's mansion in Zhongnan City. Wei Chao's shoulder was wrapped with gauze, and he walked out with the help of several guards. "Wei Chao." Lin Muyu greeted him. Wei Chao's legs softened and he knelt on the ground and tears flowed down. "Your Highness, I am incompetent and caused the death of more than 10,000 brothers in the Longdan army camp, and I can't even recover their bodies. This is all my fault, Wei Chao." Behind him, a group of senior generals in the Longdan army camp knelt together. Basically all of them were injured and they looked very embarrassed. Lin Muyu couldn't remember how long it had been since the Longdan army camp had suffered such a defeat. Since the Empire developed the magic crystal cannon, the Longdan army camp began to win every battle, but the battle last night made everyone's liver tremble. The absolute strength gap almost completely destroyed their confidence and morale. The next priority seemed to be how to rebuild the morale, not how to retreat. "Wei Chao, get up." Lin Muyu turned over and dismounted from the horse, helped Wei Chao up and said, "The soldiers who died in the battle are the warriors of the Empire. They died for the Empire, and their names will be recorded in the National Monument Forest forever. Get up, the ground is cold." "Thank you, Your Highness." Wei Chao wiped his tears and said, "Your Highness, they are too strong, I know. Go in and eat first." "Yes." "Someone write a letter and send it back to Eastern Capital. Inform Prince Xian and Prince Zhong that the Dragon Imperial Battle Spiral can completely defend against the Magic Crystal Cannon. Let them make early preparations." "Yes." After entering the hall, a few tables of food were already laid out, but there was only food and no wine. The Longdan army camp suffered a crushing defeat, and no one had the mood to drink today. They also couldn't taste the taste of good wine. Qian Feng sat beside Lin Muyu, looking at the table of delicious food and feeling extremely bitter. Tasteless. However, his body needed to replenish nutrients, so Qian Feng ate a lot. This caused quite a number of captaincy in the Longdan army camp to cast him looks of disdain. Qian Feng only lowered his head to eat, swallowing in big mouthfuls as if he was swallowing his hatred and humiliation together. Chapter 8:18. On Dragon-shaped Island, the fog of early spring lingered on the sea, causing one's field of vision to be no more than 50 meters. After many years of operation, numerous artificial islands and reefs were buried along the coast of Dragon-shaped Island to prevent warships from docking from any direction. There was a temporary sentry post every 100 meters on the coast, and a temporary camp every 1 kilometer. Early in the morning the rain and fog fell from the sky. Spring seemed to have come earlier on the island. Many Iha nation soldiers had already taken off their armor. They surrounded a huge rock and shouted the number of the dice loudly. Their faces were flushed. They were gambling on nothing else but the 3 opportunities to have fun every month. In order to stabilize the army's morale, young Master Qin Huan had set a new rule for female soldiers. Every 100 soldiers would have 1 female soldier, but each soldier could only enjoy the female soldier 3 times a month. Therefore, the chips these soldiers used to gamble in their spare time were not Jianghu dollars, but the opportunities to enjoy the female soldier. Leopard, leopard. An old soldier with 2 silver stars on his shoulders shouted loudly. He was a centurion, but he looked to be at least 50 years old. When he picked up the cup made of bamboo, there were indeed 3 ones on the dice. The old centurion was instantly ecstatic. He was so happy that the veins on his face were bulging. Haha, Zhang Li Hozi, your 3 chances this month are all mine. Haha, are you convinced? The lean soldier grinned in disappointment. 3 times in a row. I don't know if it's real. They might have done something. I say, Geezer Wang, you have to take it easy. Can you take 21 chances to have a big fight in a month? Don't sprain your old waist. I heard that there was an old guy in the vanguard who died on the female soldier's belly not long ago. The centurion raised his hand. Brat, you dare to curse me? I'll make you pay for it. However, Li Hozi laughed loudly and ran away as fast as he could. Where are you going, brat? Don't leave your post without permission. Otherwise, if Marshal Ding catches you, he'll give you 100 military lashes. I'm not leaving. I'm going to pee. Humph, a lazy donkey is full of shit and urine. Go, come back quickly. Monkey Lee lifted his pants and ran straight to the shore. Looking at the fog from afar, there was a patch of reeds on the shore. He jumped into the reeds and peed while humming a song from Iha country. Big girl, fair and fair, with her 2 **** raised, calling me brother. You're so naughty. I said I don't want you, but you still came. If you come in January, it will be Shangxi. If you come in February, it will be steamed with flour cakes. Little sister, why haven't you come yet? Big brother will wait for you. Before he finished singing, a black shadow suddenly attacked from above the reeds. Pooh. An arrow pierced through his throat and blood splashed 10 meters away. Li Hozi retreated a few steps. His face was full of confusion. His throat was completely pierced through. After the arrow pierced through his throat, it shot straight into the rocks behind him. The feathers were buzzing and trembling. What kind of powerful arm strength was needed to shoot such a powerful arrow? Monkey Lee. A soldier walked over and took off his pants with his eyes squinted. Just as he was about to urinate, he saw the corpse lying on the ground in front of him. His body suddenly trembled and his face turned pale. Quick, help. Li Hozi is dead. Monkey Lee is dead. The soldiers who were gambling in the camp on the shore rushed over quickly. Each of them put on their armor as if they were facing a formidable enemy. However, it seemed that they found nothing except Monkey Lee's corpse. Who killed Monkey Lee? The old centurion held the iron spear and said, Damn it. Doesn't he know that Monkey Lee's sister is the concubine of His Royal Highness Qin Huan? He's courting death. Sir, listen. There's a sound on the sea. What sound? Why can't I hear it? Listen carefully. The centurion frowned. The surroundings were silent. The sound of the tide came from the sea. At the same time, there seemed to be some rhythmic sounds. It was the sound of paddling. The fog is too thick. Is there someone on the sea? I don't know. What should we do now? Light the beacon fire. Yes. A soldier lit a torch and went straight to a beacon tower not far away. However, he stood still before he came to the side of the beacon tower. What's wrong, Zhang Sen? Are you possessed? The centurion asked impatiently. Zhang Sen stared straight at the sky above his head. There was a person. That's right. The person was standing on the beacon tower. He was barehanded, but he was wearing a suit of refined armor. Above him was a huge shadow. It was a giant beast that was hovering in the sky, a dragon. Zhang Sen couldn't even speak a complete sentence. Suddenly he began to bleed from his 7 orifices. A powerful domain aura that almost made his heart stop beating descended. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Sen spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. He died without a complete corpse. Oh my God, what's going on? The centurion was shocked. At this moment, the sound from the shore became louder and louder. There was an endless ping 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 sound. It was the sound of ships hitting the artificial reefs. Following that, extremely dense arrows were shot from the sea. Screams were heard one after another. In the blink of an eye, half of the 100 soldiers in the temporary camp were killed. They didn't even see the traces of their opponents. "Raise your shields and defend," the centurion shouted loudly. A group of soldiers picked up their shields from the ground and formed a shield formation. They curled their bodies behind the shields and raised their spears to meet the enemy solemnly. There were no weak soldiers under a strong general. The army brought by Ding Shi and Long Qianlin was destined to be strong. But this time the opponent was far beyond their imagination. A huge creature descended from the sky with a whistling sound. It was a fire dragon. Its entire body was covered in red scales. On the dragon's back was a dragon knight in fiery red armor. Its cold eyes were filled with the desire to kill. "It's over." This was the old centurion's last sentence. Brr. The fire dragon raised its neck. Flames surged in its throat. The next moment, it lowered its head and poured the dragon flames on the crowd. The high-temperature dragon flames were terrifying. They almost instantly melted the shields of the Iha nation soldiers. They were burned to ashes along with their armor and weapons. In the blink of an eye, the temporary camp had been cleared. "Lord Honshu!" A shout came from a warship in the distance. "They've buried submerged reefs at the edge of the coast. Many of our warships have already hit the reefs. What should we do?" The dragon knight in the sky was Honshu. He smiled coldly. "What's there to fear about a mere submerged reef? Get out of the way. I'll do it." Swoosh. A figure shot down from the dragon's back. Honshu's entire body was filled with godly power. A heavy punch descended from the sky. The space distorted. Bang. A shockwave erupted. Instantly, the surface of the water trembled. Countless water droplets condensed on the surface of the water and swayed. The pulsating impact spread out in the seawater. The submerged reefs hidden at the bottom of the water were all shattered. Heaven-shattering fist. Honshu's proud technique quickly won a round of cheers. The warships began to dock. After the decks were lowered, the cavalry and infantry disembarked. In the blink of an eye, an army was formed on the dragon-shaped island. At the same time, the huge dragon circled in the sky, roaring incessantly. Honshu returned to the dragon's back. He looked down at the army below and said, "When will the marshal's warship arrive?" "In the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn." "Good. Quickly clean up the surrounding battlefield. Remove all the Iha nation soldiers. This dragon-shaped island will be the first territory our Blackstone Empire will conquer in the Shattered Cauldron realm. In addition, send envoys to the capital of the Iha nation. Tell that old fellow Qin Yi that our marshal wants to see him. If he agrees to surrender, we might let him live. Otherwise, we will raze this dragon-shaped island to the ground." "Yes." At dusk, purple light shot up into the sky from the dragon-shaped island. The magic crystal cannons were huge cannons developed from the intelligence obtained from the Empire's territory. Although the Iha nation's magic crystal cannons were slightly crude and not accurate enough, their power was not much inferior. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The shockwave from the magic crystal cannon swept back to the army, forcing some of the weaker soldiers to retreat. Inside the trenches, Ding Shi was dressed in golden armor. He held his saber horizontally and looked at the sky with an ashen face. That's right. Huge dragons were slowly rising from the ground where the magic crystal cannons had just ravaged. Each dragon was surrounded by a blue cyclone of different shades. It was the Dragon Imperial Battle Cyclone. "They aren't afraid of the magic crystal cannons?" Ding Shi's voice was trembling. "What do we do, Commander Ding?" The commander-level battle general at the side had a livid expression. "The Darkstone Empire's army is extremely powerful. Although their numbers might not be much greater than ours, they have the Darkstone Dragon Riders while we have nothing. How are we supposed to fight this battle?" "We don't have a choice." Ding Shi waved his flag and said in a low voice, "Send out cavalry to attack their formation. Use spears and kill as many as you can. The Iha nation won't just sit and wait for death." "Yes." The sounds of killing filled the air. The countless cavalry that the Iha nation had painstakingly gathered on the island charged at the enemy. However, under the roar of the huge dragons, the fate of these cavalry seemed to have been decided. "Aha, are they here to die?" In the sky, Honshu laughed arrogantly. "Everyone says that Ding Shi is a famous general, but it seems like he's just SOSO. Then, let this old man end the legend of this famous general today." Buzz. He landed and punched the ground, causing the space around him to crack. Countless Iha nation cavalry and their horses were torn to shreds by the distorted space. The smell of blood quickly filled the air. The battle had become extremely intense. Kill. Throw. The Chiha Empire's cavaliers that were moving at high speed raised their javelins and tossed them out with a swoosh. The might of the javelins was shocking, and in just a single round at least a few hundred cavaliers, infantrymen and archers from the Darkstone Empire were buried on foreign soil. However, the number of spears was limited. Once they were used up, the Iha nation army could only rely on swords and sabers to fight. The dragon cavalry circled in the sky. Dragon breath and sword chi crisscrossed the ground, causing the entire battlefield to become unbalanced. Chapter 8:19. At dusk, the Blackstone Empire's Ashen Flame Corps slowly retreated, giving the Iha nation a chance to catch their breath. However, the dense number of corpses on the battlefield was like a gloomy cloud that shrouded everyone's hearts. In the main camp. "How's the situation?" Qin asked with an ashen face. Long Qinlin's face was full of smoke, but he couldn't care less. He cupped his fists and said, "Commander Ding blocked the Ashen Flame Corps' attack 5 times in a row. Their sudden arrival caught us off guard. Commander Ding has already done a pretty good job." "Pretty good?" Marquis Man Ning sneered. "Marshal Long thinks too highly of Ding Shi. The casualty ratio between us and the enemy is as high as 1:5. We have to sacrifice 5 warriors in order to kill one of the enemy's men. Is this not bad? In my opinion, Ding Shi is really old. He's actually fighting such a powerful enemy head-on. He's simply courting death." "Is that so?" Long Qianlin raised his eyebrows. "Marquis Sunset's words are so convincing. Why don't you personally go into battle with the Blackstone Empire's army? I'd like to see how Marquis Sunset will turn the tide and save the Iha nation from the edge of the cliff." "You." The fat on Man Ning's face trembled slightly. "Commander Long's words are too sharp and unkind." Long Qianlin sneered. "Ding Shi is bathing in blood at the front, but someone is deliberately slandering him from the back. I just can't stand it. As a soldier, I definitely won't tolerate this." "Good, very good of you." Man Ning put on a fake smile and didn't say anything else. Ding Shi was Long Qianlin's only military competitor in the Iha nation. Man Ning had thought that suppressing Ding Shi would get Long Qianlin's help. Who would have thought that this would be the result? Long Qianlin actually repeatedly spoke up for Ding Shi. These soldiers were really incomprehensible. "Stop arguing." Qin Yi placed the teacup heavily on the table and his aged face was covered in worry as he said, "Let's talk about what we should do now. The Darkstone Empire's army is pressing down on our borders. What should we do?" Qin Huan cupped his fists. "Royal Father, the Blackstone Empire came from afar just to conquer. What they need is land and submission. Everything in the Shattered Cauldron realm will eventually be conquered by the Celestial Pole continent, be it us or the Qin Empire." "What do you mean?" This child believes that there are 2 possible methods. The first is to negotiate peace with the Blackstone Empire. However, we must intimidate them with military might. Otherwise, it won't be a peace negotiation, but a surrender and submission. The second is to give up on Dragon-Shaped Island and head to the Empire's territory to seek help from the Empire. The second option is definitely not feasible. Qin shook his head. Back then Iha country killed Qin Jin during the chaos in Lanyan City. Qin Jin is Lin Muyu's adoptive father. We're like a fishbone stuck in his throat. Lin Muyu will never tolerate us. Let's talk about the first method. Man Ning said, "Marshal Ding fought the enemy at the front and lost 30,000 warriors of Iha country in less than a day. How much food and gold coins will we have to spend to exchange for these 30,000 warriors? In this way, even if we fight to the death and intimidate the enemy, I'm afraid that we'll only be left with a group of people with 1 foot in the grave. It'll be meaningless to the Blackstone Empire. Will they still negotiate peace?" Qin muttered to himself. After a while, he raised his head and asked, "Marshal Long, what do you think?" Long Qianlin was the pillar of Iha country. Qin knew that asking Long Qianlin when he couldn't make a decision wouldn't be wrong. "Commander," Long Qianlin said respectfully, "if we can fight, we might be able to win back our dignity. If we surrender without a fight, Iha country will become a vassal of the Blackstone Empire. I've long heard from the merchants from the Celestial Pole continent that the imperial family of the Blackstone Empire is cruel and heartless. The Emperor Shi Yuan doesn't even hesitate to use the blood essence of young boys and girls to cultivate. Furthermore, the Blackstone Empire keeps a large number of mercenaries and the common people suffer unspeakably. If we surrender to such a cruel and heartless empire, What will happen to His Majesty? As he spoke, Long Qianlin put his hand on the hilt of the sword at his waist and said, His Majesty has 3 royal highnesses in addition to young Prince Qin Huan. The youngest is only 11 years old. Does His Majesty want to see his children become slaves and servants? Even the royal highnesses may become the exclusive toys of the Blackstone Empire's imperial family? Long Qianlin. Man Ning trembled with anger and pointed at Long Qianlin's nose. You're treacherous. How dare you say such arrogant words? Do you still have any commander in your eyes? Long Qianlin glanced at him coldly and didn't say anything. At this moment, the 2 old generals cupped their fists together. Commander Long's honest words are unpleasant to the ear. I hope Commander Long will consider them. Qin Yi nodded and muttered to himself. The smoke from the incense burner lingered. After a long time, Qin Yi raised his head. His eyes were slightly red as he said indifferently, I fully support Marshal Ding Shi. This battle concerns the future of Iha country. We must not show weakness. Commander is wise. Long Qianlin cupped his fists. Everyone expressed their agreement. Man Ning trembled with anger. A bunch of fools, a bunch of fools. All of you can leave. I want some peace and quiet. Qin Yi waved his hand. Commander Long, stay. I have something to say to you. Yes. Everyone left, leaving Long Qianlin standing on the red carpet with his hand on the hilt of his sword. Commander Long. Qin Yi's voice was a little hoarse as he asked, Is Iha country's destiny really over? God disposes but man proposes. Long Qianlin didn't answer his question. He said, To achieve great things one needs extraordinary courage and skill. Commander Long missed the opportunity to become a king, but he has been diligent and loved the people ever since he came to Dragon-Shaped Island. This is something that everyone can see. Now that Commander Long has won the hearts of the people, there is no need to hesitate anymore. Let's fight this battle. The winner will be remembered for generations to come. The loser will retreat bravely. Retreat bravely? Qin Yi was stunned. What does that mean? Long Qianlin smiled. It is time to plan for the future. Commander Long, what do you mean by that? Commander Long, there are currently around 300,000 Iha country troops on Dragon-Shaped Island. I have given Marshal Ding Shi a total of 150,000, which means that there are still 150,000 troops in my hands. What does Commander Long mean? It's like this. We have been forging warships for many years, but we have only built 1,000 warships. Based on the number of people each warship can carry, at most 150,000 people. Thus, even if we abandon Dragon-Shaped Island and retreat, we will not be able to take 300,000 soldiers with us. That means we can only leave behind 150,000 soldiers, sacrificing the rook to protect the general. You? Qin Yi was stunned. Commander Long, you want to leave Marshal Ding Shi and the 150,000 soldiers to fight alone on Dragon-Shaped Island? Yes. Long Qianlin's gaze was cold. Commander and young prince, please immediately lead our army to leave Dragon-Shaped Island. This subordinate has already prepared everything. We will head to the southern coast of the Soaring Sky province. There are no imperial troops there. Only by preserving enough troops will we have a future. Then what about Marshal Ding Shi and the 150,000 soldiers? Qin Yi slapped the table and stood up. Do you want me to abandon them? If not for them delaying the nearly 300,000 soldiers of the Blackstone Empire, we would not have had the possibility of retreating. Long Qianlin cupped his fists and said, Commander and young prince, please lead everyone away. This subordinate will lead the guards to the battlefield and defend against the enemy with Marshal Ding Shi. We will either return alive or die on the battlefield. This is the final destination of the 2 marshals of the Iha nation. This is also what Marshal Ding Shi and I want. Commander, please do not hesitate. Every minute and every second is extremely precious to us. Qin Yi's entire body trembled. Commander Long, this subject deserves to die for his loyalty. Long Qianlin knelt on one knee and raised his head to look at the aged Qin Yi. When Long Qianlin was in dire straits, the Southern Protector King took him in. Since your Highness has acknowledged me as your commander, how can Long Qianlin not repay you? Your Highness, quickly leave. No matter what happens in the future, Long Qianlin will die without regrets. This is the last thing Ding Shi and I can do for the Iha nation. Qin Yi raised his head and tears streamed down his aged face. His trembling palm touched Long Qianlin's shoulder and said, If I, Qin Yi, had a son like Commander Long, I would die without regrets. It's just a pity, your Highness, say no more. Time is precious. Long Qianlin stood up and turned to leave without looking back. His last words reverberated in the wind. It's not too late to repay the mistakes made in the past. If Qin Yin returns alive, this subordinate would rather see His Majesty submit to her and atone for the mistakes made in the past. As for this subject, I am not willing to die under the swords of the Blackstone Empire. Now that a powerful enemy has arrived, I, Long Qianlin, will die under the iron hooves of the Blackstone Empire without regrets. Qin Yi stood in the tent and suddenly let out a sorrowful cry. In the land of exile, there were many huge iron chests lying in the wilderness. There were close to 100 of them, and each chest contained about 100 members of the banished army. Experts who were either radiated or cursed were hiding in the chests. Many of them stuck their heads out, wanting to see the situation outside. They seemed to be very impatient. There are still 10 minutes before the wheel of time points towards the celestial pole continent. Terralyn confidently puffed out her full chest and smiled. This is also the beginning of our banished angel squad's mission. As for which corner of the celestial pole continent we will be teleported to, that's hard to say. Dora sneered from afar. Lake frowned and said, Lord Sheen, are you really going to bring all these dregs of the land of exile to the celestial pole continent? Sheen nodded and said nothing. Then how are you going to send these huge chests? You should know that the direction of the wheel of time changes very quickly. You only have 15 minutes at most. That's my problem. Don't worry. Terralyn, when the time is up, immediately help me open a plane crack. The bigger the better. Do your best. Yes, Sheen. 10 minutes later, Terralyn's expression turned cold. We're here. She let out a shrill cry and transformed into a level 6 blood-winged battle angel. A pair of beautiful blood wings spread out behind her, and she raised her sword and slashed towards the sky. Boom. The plane was forcibly torn apart and a huge black hole appeared. Sheen's voice was cold. Close all the chests, and everyone closed their eyes. Yes. With clanging sounds, all the chests were closed. Sheen closed her eyes and said to Dora, Dory and the others, you guys go first. I'll catch up later. Although Dora was unwilling, she had no choice but to do so. She immediately led everyone through the plane. After the 9 banished angels left one after another, Sheen opened her eyes. Immediately, a pair of beautiful starry eyes surrounded by golden flames appeared between heaven and earth. A pair of golden wings of light spread out behind her. Like a miracle, she gently lowered her palm. Immediately, nearly 100 chests trembled and flew away under an invisible force, projecting into the alternate space. All Sheen could do was send them away. As for whether they could survive the erosion of the sands of time, that was their problem. Chapter 820. Tianji Province, Jiulong Harbor. It was the largest harbor in the entire Tianji Empire. At this moment, Jiulong Harbor was bustling with activity. There was an endless stream of horses and carriages on the shore, and people were waiting in the water. As long as an order was given, thousands of iron-skinned warships would cross the strait and head straight for the broken tripod world on the other side. The coolies roared to encourage themselves and moved heavy ballistae onto the warships. The troops of the Flowing Spirit Army stood on the shore and supervised the preparations for the voyage. At this moment, the ground suddenly trembled and the sea was no longer calm. A buzzing sound came from the sky. What's wrong? A captaincy squinted at the sky and said, It's like an oracle. How many years has it been? Could it be that another oracle from the Western Divine Realm has come to our Tianji Empire? Whoosh, 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 balls of flames fell from the sky like meteorites heading straight for Jiulong Harbor. Oh no. Captaincy hurriedly shouted, Sound the alarm. These flying meteorites are coming for us. Tell everyone to get out of the way quickly. However, it was too late. In less than 3 seconds, nearly 100 meteorites wrapped in flames crashed into the shore. Some landed on the shore and some landed in the sea. Boom, boom, boom. The prepared warships were smashed into smithereens. Even the soldiers on the warships who were unable to dodge in time were turned into ashes in the raging flames. Boom, boom, boom. After the heavy blow, the sea suddenly sank by nearly 10 meters, sinking hundreds of warships with it. However, the surging tide in the distance was like a tsunami. In the blink of an eye, at least 200 warships were turned upside down under the huge waves. Cries and screams were heard, and the entire Jiulong Harbor was on fire. It was like purgatory on earth. Sizzle, sizzle, bolts of lightning flashed within the flames, bringing with them extremely pure light elemental energy. Within the flames, the figures that were surrounded by walls of light stood up, and pairs of blood-red wings spread out from their backs. There was no need to guess what they were. "It's an angel," Captain C trembled all over. He didn't care about putting out the fire anymore. Kneeling on one knee, he said from afar, "Tianfeng, the commander of the 9th Battalion of the Qinji Empire's Liuji army, pays my respect to your excellency." A very pleasant female voice came from the raging flames. "Put out the fire and save them." Waves of light element shockwaves came crashing down, and the invisible domain power could even suppress the flames. The 10 angels worked together, and in the blink of an eye, the raging fire on the harbor was extinguished. However, the overturned warships in the sea could only be hoisted up one by one. There was no shortcut. Amidst the clouds, a beautiful girl with closed eyes and a pair of golden wings unfurled from her back. She wore exquisite combat boots and the uniform and cloak of a battle angel. She walked over step by step, stunning Tianfeng. He gulped and said, "Subordinate Tianfeng greets Lady Golden-Winged Battle Angel." The young girl did not open her eyes to look at him. Her long eyelashes were extremely beautiful. She was already so beautiful with her eyes closed, so how beautiful would she be when she opened her eyes? Tianfeng couldn't help but think to himself. He even hoped that she would open her eyes, but to his disappointment, this battle angel had no intention of opening her eyes. "My name is Xin," the young girl said indifferently. "I am the leader of the 10 exiled battle angels, Tianfeng. Where is this place?" In the distance, a group of elite cavalry of the Liuji army had already arrived. Many of them even had their swords drawn. Tianfeng hurriedly raised his hand to signal the people behind him not to act rashly. He respectfully said to Xin, "Reporting to Lady Xin, this is the harbor of Jiulong City under the jurisdiction of the Tianji province. It is called Jiulong Port. We are currently transporting resources to prepare for war. May I know what order the Lord of the Western Divine Realm has?" "There is no order," Xin said. "We are exiled angels. We are no longer a member of the Western Divine Realm. We will help you but not in the name of the Western Divine Realm. Do you understand?" "Yes, your subordinate understands." At this moment, iron chests floated up from the seawater behind them. The doors of the chests opened, and ugly soldiers came out one after another. Some of them had a very strong aura, reaching the Holy King realm, and some had just entered the Divine Realm. Some were very weak, but they looked very capable. They were definitely the kind of people who killed without blinking an eye. Tianfeng was shocked. "Archers, prepare to shoot." "Wait." The corner of Xin's mouth curled up, and with a gentle smile she said, "Don't be nervous, Lord Tianfeng. These people are my subordinates and they will help you win this war." Yes, your subordinate understands." Tianfeng respectfully nodded. Xin. Amidst the lingering smoke, a pair of black wings spread open behind Dora and she floated out. "It is useless for us to talk here. Let's go and meet the Emperor of the Tianji Empire, Baiming Yuan. He is the ruler of this country and we should meet him first." Xin frowned slightly but did not refute. She nodded and said, "Okay. Tianfeng, where is Baiming Yuan? Bring us to him." "Yes." Tianfeng respectfully nodded and ordered, "Men, bring 10 war horses to the battle angels." When Xin flipped over and mounted the warhorse, Terralyn could not help but be stunned. It seemed that Xin was very familiar with warhorses, and her identity was becoming more and more mysterious. However, Terralyn did not want to find out. After all, Xin had saved her life and would not harm her. This guarantee between friends was enough. In the sea and on the shore, the metal chests kept on opening, and the banished land armies with all sorts of ridiculous weapons appeared. The soldiers of the Flowing Harmony army could not help but laugh when they saw them from afar. Some of them were holding meteor hammers, while others were hugging onto metal pipes. No one knew what they were, but the most ridiculous thing was that one of them was actually holding onto a metal hammer that looked like a toilet bowl. No one knew what it was used for. Baiming Yuan was not in the imperial capital, but in Nine Dragons City. Perhaps because it was close to Nine Dragons Port, it was suitable for the emperor to supervise. After a group of battle angels entered the city, they immediately attracted a lot of onlookers. Although Xin could not see them, she could hear the commoners' discussions. In front of them was Terralyn, and Terralyn was sitting on the horse holding the reins for her. Beside her was a group of cavalry sent by Tianfeng to protect her. There were more than 3,000 people, and this guard of honor was really big. Terralyn, Lake, Zhou Shimin, and the others had lived in the divine realm for a long time. Now that they had come to the mortal realm and seen such a lively city, they were naturally very happy. Everyone was talking and laughing, but when Terralyn looked back at Sheen, she saw that her expression was incomparably calm, as if she could not hear anything. Sheen seemed to never know how to smile. Terralyn's heart was secretly sour. No one knew how much suffering Sheen had experienced. In the bottom of her heart, there were memories that others could not touch. Other than a polite smile, Sheen did not have any other extra smile. Not long after, the procession slowly entered the palace of Nine Dragons City. The Emperor Baiming Yuan's palace was very magnificent, spanning nearly 10 miles. There were thousands of pavilions and terraces, and the palace was guarded like a forest. There were groups of palace maids. The Emperor of the mortal realm was really enjoying his life. Terralyn could not help but pout. No wonder some gods would rather cultivate in the celestial pole land than ascend to the divine realm. So that's why. Tianfeng smiled awkwardly. Miss Terralyn, these are just things that the Emperor of the mortal realm should have. It's not only the Western divine realm. His Majesty Baiming Yuan has made great efforts to govern. With less than 40% of the continent, he has the strongest power. This is enough to prove everything. I hope Miss Terralyn can put in a good word for the Tianji Empire when you return to the heavenly realm. If I will. Terralyn smiled faintly. In Tianfeng's mind, Terralyn was simply a supreme existence. It should be known that the Light Clan behind her was one of the 4 great clans of the Western Divine Realm. There were at least hundreds of god emperors. The hundreds of plains under their jurisdiction were also rich in resources. A mere celestial pole land was like a leek field in Terralyn's vegetable garden. She could harvest it whenever she wanted. This time, sending Terralyn, Sheen, Dora, and the others to the mortal realm to help win this war seemed more like a trial. The Western Divine Realm only wanted these battle angels to gain more profound combat experience as soon as possible. This was also a kind of gilding. If they did not experience a planar war, perhaps these young gods would not be able to take charge of a huge clan, at least not yet. Tianfeng was well aware of this and naturally could not see through it. He just slowly entered the palace hall with the 10 battle angels. Before stepping into the palace hall, Sheen had already frowned slightly. She felt a very tyrannical divine power that was much stronger than her. In addition, there were also a few God-King level power fluctuations that were not much inferior to her. Presumably, the strongest was Baiming Abyss, and the rest were powerhouses under his command. Sheen, Dora, Terralyn, and the other 10 exiled battle angels, please have an audience. The guard on duty shouted loudly. Although Sheen could not see through the fluctuations of power, she had a better grasp of the surrounding terrain than people with sharp ears and eyes. She stepped over the threshold and walked in with a group of battle angels. They walked straight along the red carpet in the palace hall, passing through the officials, and arrived in front of Baiming Abyss. The Empire's Emperor, Baiming Abyss, was wearing a dragon robe. He looked calm and his cultivation was unfathomable. His eyes flickered with a deep light. After seeing the 10 battle angels enter the palace hall, he immediately stood up, cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Lower Realm Tianji Empire's Emperor, Baiming Abyss, greets the battle angels. Your Majesty, you don't have to be so courteous." Sheen smiled faintly. "We came from the banished land to assist the celestial pole continent in accomplishing this grand undertaking, so Your Majesty, you don't have to be so courteous with us." "Thank you everyone and thank you Lord Ruler." Baiming Abyss looked at the sky with sincerity and said, "I wonder if the battle angels have been to the Celestial Empire and the Blackstone Empire?" "No." Sheen shook her head. "That's great." A hint of joy appeared on Baiming Abyss's calm face. Chapter 821. To Baiming Yuan, the arrival of the 10 battle angels was of great significance. It was definitely not limited to the addition of 10 sacred martial king-level experts. The greater significance lay in the families behind these people. He had never heard of Sheen and Dora before, but he had long heard of the names of Terralyn, Lake, Zhou Shimin, Luo Fei and the others. They were all heirs of the major families. Gaining their trust meant that the Tianji Empire had gained the trust of the major families in the Western Divine Realm. This was simply a great thing for the Tianji Empire. As long as the Tianji Empire was valued by the great clans and became the cradle for them to cultivate their talents, they would have countless treasures from the immortal realm to use, especially the Radiant Origin Stone. A single Radiant Origin Stone could create a Saint Martial King. This was not a joke. Thinking of this, Baiming Yuan could not help but laugh. He said, "The Tianji Empire is the most powerful among the 3 empires in the Celestial Pole continent. Why don't you all stay in the Tianji Empire? Eh. Dora smiled. Then we'll stay in the Tianji Empire and listen to His Majesty's orders. Wait a minute. Shi nodded and said, Dora, I think you've misunderstood the ruler's intentions. The 10 of us newly promoted battle angels didn't come to the celestial pole continent to listen to orders. Instead, we're here to assist. I'll be in charge of everything, and the other members of the battle angel team will also have to listen to my orders. Our team will be independent and will not be restricted by anything. As she spoke, she raised her beautiful face and closed her eyes to look at Bai Mingyuan. She said, Your Majesty, what do you think? Dora trembled with anger, but she did not speak. After all, she was only the vice-captain. Bai Mingyuan smiled. Miss Sheen is the captain of the Battle Angel squad. Naturally, we'll listen to your arrangements. In addition, the Tianji Empire will do its best to satisfy all of Miss Sheen's requests. If you need anything, just tell us. You don't have to be polite. Okay, thank you, Your Majesty. Sheen bowed in the Western Divine Realm manner and said with a smile, Since Your Majesty has said so, then Sheen will take the liberty to make some requests. Okay, miss, please go ahead. First of all, I'll need His Majesty's token. That way the Battle Angel squad's movements in the Tianji Empire will be very convenient. This is a small matter. Men, bring me my Golden Emperor token. Bai Ming Abyss was very generous. A waiter quickly came over with a tray. It was a token made of pure gold that glowed with a golden light. The craftsmanship was very exquisite. Bai Mingyuan said, There are only 2 Golden Emperor tokens in the entire Tianji Empire. One is with my younger brother, Marshal Bai Minghuan, and the other is this one. Please take good care of it, Miss Sheen. With the Golden Emperor token, it's as if you're the Emperor himself. You can command all the major provinces, government offices, and so on. You can also deploy the Imperial Army of 10,000 soldiers at any time. Thank you, Your Majesty. Sheen placed the King's Golden token into her pocket and continued, The Battle Angel squad only has a few members, so I still need an army. An army that will only obey my commands. I wonder if Your Majesty is willing to bestow it to me? Bai Mingyuan narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, This kind of army? I wonder how many people Miss Sheen needs? 10,000. Oh, 10,000. That's easy. Men, take out a battalion of 10,000 men from the Flowing Spirit Army and have them follow Miss Sheen. They will be ready to be deployed at any time. Wait a minute. Sheen replied, Transferring 10,000 men from a battalion would easily cause a lot of trouble. How about this, Your Majesty? Can I request for Your Majesty to transfer 1,000 outstanding men from each of the 10,000 men battalions of the Flowing Spirit Army to me? I will appoint the Kiliarchs of these battalions. What does Your Majesty think? All right. Bai Mingyuan nodded his head. I'll listen to Miss Sheen. Thank you, Your Majesty. Sheen smiled and continued, I have another request. Please speak. This way, I will have 20,000 men that I can deploy. When I came, I saw that your country's army was preparing warships to cross the sea. So I need a warship that can carry 20,000 men to be deployed at my command. This. Bai Mingyuan muttered to himself. Is it difficult? No, it can be done. Men, take out 100 medium-sized warships and a dragon-headed warship from the 9 Dragons dock to be deployed by the Battle Angels. Yes. Sheen smiled and bowed once again. Thank you, Your Majesty. Tonight, I will hold a welcoming banquet for the Battle Angels in the palace. I hope that you will do me the honor of coming and temporarily stay in the Golden Dragon Inn next to the palace. The largest and best inn in 9 Dragon City is the Golden Dragon Inn. I hope that you will not feel shabby. Your Majesty is too polite. Terralyn smiled. Luo Fei also said, Thank you, Uncle. Luo Fei. Bai Mingyuan smiled like an elder. How has your father been recently? Luo Fei nodded. Thanks to Uncle's blessings, Father's body is very good. He has recently broken through to the 97th Heavenly Passage. That's really worth celebrating. Thank you, Uncle. Bai Mingyuan had already walked down the steps and had the demeanor of an approachable emperor. I've never seen Miss Dora before. May I know where you are from? Dora respectfully said, I come from a faraway and impoverished plain. Oh, I see. Bai Mingyuan smiled. Heroes don't ask about their background. Miss Dora, being able to obtain the Battle Angel inheritance is enough to prove your talent and intelligence. Saying this, Bai Mingyuan looked at Sheen and said, Miss Sheen, may I know where you are from? I come from the land of exile, Sheen said lightly. Ah. Bai Mingyuan was stunned. Terralyn saw that the emperor was a little embarrassed and said, "Xin is Lady Shiyan's sister." Shock slowly appeared on Bai Mingyuan's face. "So you're Seraph Shiyan's sister, my apologies for not recognizing you." Terralyn smiled in satisfaction. She came from the Light Clan and was used to such power struggles. Rather than saying which family Xin came from, it was better to directly bring up Shiyan. After all, Shiyan had long stepped into the 99th Heavenly Passage and was the #1 person in the Western Divine Realm other than ruler Claude. Even the other Seraph Eva paled in comparison. For the past 10,000 years, Shiyan had fought everywhere and united more than half of the Western Divine Realm's starfields with her tyrannical power. This was an unparalleled achievement. Moreover, she was a gentle person and had a good relationship with the leaders of the Western Divine Realm's major families. So in the Western Divine Realm, who wouldn't respect and fear Seraph Shiyan? In fact, Xin didn't even know that her sister was so powerful. But she remembered what Shiyan had said to her before she left. "Go and live your own life." So, Xin had already made up her mind. This time, she wouldn't let herself be controlled by others. "Then we'll take our leave and go back to rest," Xin said respectfully. "All right, goodbye, Lady Xin." Dora didn't seem to want to leave. She said to Luo Fei, "Young Master Luo Fei, didn't you say you wanted to chat with His Majesty? I heard that the Qingji Empire's tea is very good. Can you stay and drink it?" Bai Mingyuan couldn't help but laugh. "Miss Dora is too polite. Then follow me to the rear hall." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Xin, Terralyn, and the others went to the post house, while Dora and Luo Fei stayed in the palace. Inside the rear hall, there were many palace maids serving them carefully. Clouds of mist lingered in the incense burner, and the fragrance assailed their nostrils. After entering the rear hall, Bai Mingyuan stopped smiling and dismissed the maids. He asked, "Luo Fei, do you have something to say?" Luo Fei stammered, "Actually, it's nothing." "Then why are you here?" Bai Mingyuan was puzzled. Dora smiled and reached into her interspatial bag. Suddenly, she took out a dazzling spear and asked, "Your Majesty, do you recognize this treasure?" "Fergus spear?" Bai Mingyuan hurriedly knelt on one knee and said, "It's the Fergus spear of Lord Juggernaut." "Miss Dora, why do you have it?" "It was given to me by Lord Juggernaut. He ordered me to do what is necessary when necessary." A hint of pride appeared in Dora's eyes. She said, "Lord Juggernaut doesn't fully trust Xin, so he gave it to me. Your Majesty, I believe you know how to do things, right?" Bai Mingyuan could not help but feel a chill in his heart when he saw the ambition and desire in Dora's eyes. Was this something a young girl should have? Obviously not. However, Bai Mingyuan had roamed the continent for 7,000 years and had seen many clever people who were scheming and scheming. Thus, he smiled and said, "This is a matter of the Western Divine Realm, and I'm just a god of the mortal world. Therefore, it's not convenient for me to meddle in the affairs of the Divine Realm. As for Xin, she's Lady Shiyan's younger sister. All the more, I won't do anything disrespectful to Miss Xin." Dora squinted her beautiful eyes. She thought to herself that this old fox was really cunning. She smiled and said, "Your Majesty, I'm not asking you to do anything disrespectful to Xin. I'm just discussing with you. Can I mobilize the army of the Qingji Empire with this spear?" "This?" Bai Mingabyss smiled faintly and said, "Forgive me for being presumptuous, but most people probably don't recognize the Fergus spear. In fact, many people don't even know about the Sovereign Lord's existence. However, I don't have a third king medallion with me." "It's all right." Dora's lips curled up slightly. She said, "You can give the order directly." "What do you mean?" "I don't want an army made up of mortals. They can't even withstand a single blow. What I want is an army that can work for me and turn the situation around. Do you understand? Furthermore," Dora had a sincere smile on her face, "as long as you help me, young Master Luo Fei will put in a good word for you when he returns to the Divine Realm. I heard that the Nia family has several radiant primordial stones in their collection. If your Majesty obtains one of them, perhaps you'll be one step closer to the 99 heavenly caves." Dora's palm was gently placed on Luo Fei's thigh. How could Bai Mingyuan not see it? He secretly felt a chill in his heart. This little vixen is really amazing. She's making use of all the advantages a woman has. "Then what army does Miss Dora want from the Qingji Empire?" Bai Mingyuan asked. "I don't want anything else." She stretched out a white scallion finger and said, "I want the Dragon Riders." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.